RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. That's the wrong thumbnail. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you once again for being here, as I am here every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Appreciate each and every one of you. If you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show. God, Congress is such a disappointment. We often talk about the dangers of the judiciary, but, you know, inaction, indecision, and inability perpetually to get anything done, that's pretty dangerous as well. And, we have this illusion of choice because of elections. Oh, you could just elect somebody else, get them in there, and have them do the things you want them to do. Well, unfortunately, as we all know, it's not exactly like that. You know, it's times like this that I feel perfectly comfortable in granting President Trump the right to just be a king. I'm like, I don't care. Congress isn't doing anything. The judicial system is totally broken. But either way, this is what we've got. It's what our forefathers put together for us, and I'm not losing hope, not losing faith, not blackpilling, but I'm just going to call out this garbage when I see it. So, again, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, help us out by sharing the show. Do me a big favor. Click that red pill, whatever it might be. And if you haven't yet, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're about to get into it right about now. All right, so I do feel better, definitely better than I was this morning. I was able to get into the chiropractor around 12:30, so kind of been rushing and running most of the day. But I also have like this back roller thing that my chiropractor had told me to get. As soon as I got off the air last night, I spent about 20-30 minutes on that. I actually did about 20 minutes in front of the red light today. Specifically, they have a setting for joint pain and joint health, so I think that actually helped out a lot more than even like physically stretching. But going to the chiropractor, I cannot recommend that enough. I have also officially gotten my new bill for my medical insurance, and I am even more committed to canceling it. There is absolutely no way that I'm going to pay as much as they are trying to get me to pay, because I do not use it enough. Now, every time I say I have a doctor's appointment, people are like, why would you go to the doctor? Well, unfortunately, I have certain health predispositions which necessitate me going to a doctor on 1 or 2 occasions a year. So, unfortunately, that's just the way that it is. But even paying the $70 for the self-pay, or even if it's like $120, I don't even know the last time I had to go to the doctor and I didn't have insurance. So, anyways, I'm done. I'm canceling it. I think I don't know. I don't know what the hell we're going to do. But that is one of the big things that we're going to be talking about today. Congress addressing the Affordable Care Act, because this is, as you will hear from Caroline Leavitt, an artificial stop that the Democrats put on this. They put this time limit, and they have essentially created the problem that we find ourselves in now. The healthcare industry, the insurance industry is out of control. They want to bleed the American people. And, it's really unfortunate that Congress doesn't have to buy insurance in the same way that we do. They are taken care of. I don't know why they can't set us up with what they do for the members of Congress and for retirees from Congress who end up getting medical assistance and care for the rest of their lives. All right, before we get into all of that, I do want to give a big shout out to the first sponsor of the program. That will be my friends over here at Brightcore. You guys, did you know that U.S. life expectancy peaked at 78 years old in 2014? And globally, life expectancy is now declining for the very first time in 30 years. That's because people are aging and their health is deteriorating faster than ever before. This is due to more toxins in the air, more chemicals in our soil and food, plenty of other external factors that are new to us, microplastics and all of that stuff. What most people don't know is that we actually can fight aging and disease at a cellular level. Now, take a look at this anti-aging study that we've got on screen. Scientists have discovered that kimchi actually slows the aging process of human cells. And on top of that, it protects your DNA from damage, which can lead to chronic disease and cancer. The power of nature can oftentimes outweigh the power of pharmaceuticals without the nasty side effects. And now you can get all of the benefits of kimchi in a simple capsule with Kimchi 1. Each one of these capsules delivers over 900 probiotic strains, plus antioxidants and enzymes, and as we age, we become more susceptible to microbial threats. But Kimchi 1 is a natural antimicrobial. It helps your body fight off harmful bacteria, fungi, viruses, and even parasites, all while boosting immunity and energy. Best of all, Kimchi 1 is 100% made in the USA. It's all natural, it's non-GMO, so you can support your gut, protect your cells, and feel younger every day with Kimchi 1 from Brightcore. And the best part is that today you can get 25% off your order by using the code REDPILL at mybrightcore.com/redpill. You can go to the website directly, or you can use the QR code that you see on screen. But if you want to get the best deal, you got to call Brightcore at the number on screen, 888-383-5996. You'll get up to 50% off. You'll also get free shipping, and you're even going to get a free bottle of vitamin D3 with your order. That number, once again, is 888-383-5996. Detox your body, rebuild your gut, and take your health into your hands starting today. Now, if you didn't get any of that written down, the good news is all of that information is in the description of the video. Just want to give a big thank you to Brightcore for being a sponsor of the program. And I would like to begin because I saw someone in the chat say, "Save Minnesota." We may finally have an opportunity to deliver real results in Minnesota, sometimes referred to as Little Mogadishu or Somalia with snowplows, because Mike Lindell has officially announced that, yes, in fact, he is running to be the governor of Minnesota, the founder of My Pillow, a staunch ally of President Trump, a major proponent for election integrity and election security. And of course, Tim Walz, the current incumbent Democrat governor of Minnesota, has presided over the greatest amount of graft, grift, and theft from the taxpayers and the destruction wholesale of the state of Minnesota. So that is who Mike is going to be running against. And you can't forget that President Donald J. Trump recently called Tim Walz retarded, and he totally deserves it. So this announcement Mike made was during a special appearance on Bannon's War Room podcast. During the course of his announcement, let me first say, who the heck is running Mike's media team? Like, the audio was horrible on this announcement. From a outsider's perspective, this is the kind of announcement that you want to have crystal clear audio. Get this man a microphone. He deserves to be heard. He needs to have people understand how serious he is about this. And I understand why Mike did the announcement from the inside of his factory in Minnesota. But I just feel like the media team really let him down. You could hardly understand what he was saying at certain times. But essentially, he emphasized that his plan is to protect families from the rising crime that is taking over Minnesota, ease the burdensome taxes and regulations that are currently stifling businesses and business owners in Minnesota, support the people who are battling addiction, because as you know, like myself, Mike Lindell is a long-term recovering addict. He will always tell people that he was addicted to crack cocaine, alcohol, and so many other things. And through the glory of God, he was delivered from that to become the business owner and the employer that he is now. And on top of that, also a major proponent for the fixes that we need to see in our election system. And probably most important, he also wants to improve Minnesota's education system. You can't do that when fully 50% of your class doesn't even speak English. Then the English language Native American students are going to be at a major disadvantage because the teachers are going to be spending an inordinate amount of time trying to work with those immigrant students, legal or otherwise, and they're going to leave the Americans in the dust. He said, I am still standing. My pillow is still standing. And now I want you to know that I will stand with you as the next governor of the state of Minnesota. In his statement, he also said, I will stand for you against the rampant fraud under Governor Walz. I will stand with you against a crime that threatens the safety of your family. I will stand against government-sponsored tyranny, I believe he said, trying to take your livelihood via the exploitation of property taxes, excessive fees, and unfair sales tax. I'll stand with you against unnecessary regulation that strangles the entrepreneurial spirit. I will stand for businesses of all sizes, small, medium, large. It doesn't matter. One moment. Well, Running Patriot, the election fraud is what the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ is working on fixing right now. Minnesota is one of those states that Harmeet Dillon has sued. And so I believe that by the time of the election, 2026, right here, it's the midterms, but it's also the governor's race in the state of Minnesota, I believe that they're going to have all of that sorted out. They're going to have all of those illegal Somalis off there. They're going to have all of the dead voters off of there. And I think that we would be foolish to not believe that the Trump administration is fully aware of just how broken the system is and how dire the circumstances are. Now, if I'm wrong, I will be the first person to come up here and say I did not call this correctly. I definitely had too much opium, but we are at a very precarious time in our nation's history. And I simply believe that President Trump and the administration is on top of this. Even though we're not hearing about every single movement, I think that there truly is a lot that's going on. So Mike continued, we need to defend those who provide our citizens with jobs that they need to work in order to take care of their families. I will stand for those of you that are struggling with addiction. I will stand for you by making Minnesota's education system one of the best. I am not alone in standing for you. I have never been alone. My Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, has been standing beside me all the way through the good times and the bad. He's never let me down. And with God's grace, I will never let you down either. So I think that Mike would be a great candidate. Well, I don't think that because of the fraud in our election system, that means that we shouldn't participate. If we don't participate, then it makes it that much easier for them to continue with the fraud. I think that our elections have largely been fake and been completely compromised up until this point. And I think that the ultimate goal of the administration is to give us an election system that isn't fake and that isn't gay. Now, one of the great things about America is that your choice to participate in the elections is totally voluntary. You don't have to do it. But I personally believe that in order to be on record and make it more difficult for them to successfully commit acts of fraud, it is incumbent upon me to actually participate. So, you know, it is what it is. But I think that, in my opinion, we're going to have all of those problems settled before we get to the 2026 midterms. I think we have to. All right. So good job for Mike Lindell. If anybody lives in Minnesota, if you guys are going to volunteer on his campaign, you guys are going to do door knocking, or if you're calling ICE to have illegal Somalis rounded up, let me know. Let me know. Tell me. I'd like to hear about it. All right. Now, I saw this. Yes, flood the zone, Kat. Flood the zone. That is my opinion on it. I think that, I mean, if we don't vote, then we run the risk of somebody voting in our place because, I mean, we've seen it happen to people all over America. If we're not actively participating in our system, then somebody else is likely going to participate for us. So I can't live with myself if I'm not doing it. All right. Now, I couldn't believe this. I said this previously when Nicki Minaj apparently had started posting pro-Trump stuff, and she was like giving props to the president for what he did with the murder of Christians in Africa. And I never anticipated that 2025 would be the year that Nicki Minaj would go MAGA. And today she posted this about Vice President J.D. Vance. She said, "Nothing brings me joy like the Vance memes and knowing that he leaned into it like a boss." I actually love that too, so that's what caught my eye when I saw this. Top tier comedy, character equals 100. But this is the part. Make no mistake, Vance is an assassin. Don't debate him on anything. Quick as a computer, maybe quicker. He's the best blend I've ever seen of us and them. Now, what she means is that he's got the intelligence and the training and the education of the Ivy League white collar, or not white collar, the Ivy League elite coastal deep state, that people were normally fighting against. But he also grew up, a poor kid in the Appalachians. And he knows everything that most people are fighting on a daily basis. So that's what she means when she says he's the best version of us and them. So man, every single time that I see something like this, it gives me a little bit of hope, because it means that the administration and their efforts to appeal to a broader base and bring people into the fold, because it's working. We are reaching people that I never would have thought we would have reached before. Like Cardi B was like a huge proponent for Joe Biden in past elections. And normally people in the entertainment industry, they can't stand President Trump or anybody that has anything to do with him. And what I see is that the problems that were created by these deep state administrations have now become so obvious to just average people, maybe who didn't even care about politics before. It is getting them fired up so that they're going to do something. And speaking out is one of those things that can really help. Now, I would like to play this introduction from Caroline Leavitt's press conference earlier today, because I think it is highly relevant to things we talk about on a regular basis. Like I will often say, just because you don't see something, because you don't see a report on something, doesn't mean that there isn't forward movement, that we're not having wins taking place. And, to be honest, over the last 11 and a half months, there has been a lot that's happened, so much that has happened, and so many positive things, but they oftentimes just get kind of swept under the rug. And the situation that President Trump and the administration were handed when they came back in January was nothing short of catastrophic. And the way that the country has turned around in that time, I think it's highly notable. So let's just hear from Caroline Leavitt. I might have to refresh.
Inflation. Hello, everybody.
And look at where Caroline is.
Good afternoon. Hello. Some new faces in here today. As we approach the end of the year, it is a great time to reflect on how much progress our country has made under President Trump's bold leadership. Given the complete mess that President Trump inherited from Joe Biden and radical left Democrats in Congress, what this administration has accomplished since January 20th has been nothing short of remarkable. While most politicians promise big on the campaign trail and break those promises once they get into office, President Trump promised big and has delivered even bigger. On the economic front, after inheriting the worst inflation crisis in over 4 decades, President Trump's pro-growth policies are making tremendous progress to make America affordable again. Under the painful Biden years, inflation reached a record high 9% and devoured Americans' purchasing power. In President Trump's term thus far, inflation has dropped to an average of just 2.7%, marking critical progress. The Trump administration is working hard every single day to bring down the cost of living through bigger paychecks and lower prices. Real wages are finally on the rise again and on pace to increase to roughly $1,200 for the average American worker this year. To put that into perspective, real wages declined by almost $3,000 under the Biden administration. That means Americans right now are on track already to make up 1/3 of the $3,000 in lost wages under Joe Biden. There's much work to do, but this has already been significant progress. President Trump has also delivered resoundingly on his promise to end Joe Biden's insane war on American energy and make sure our country has reliable and affordable energy produced right here at home. As a result, the nationwide average for regular gas just fell to its lowest level in nearly 5 years.
So I paid $2.79 at the pump today, and that was the least that I've paid in, I can't remember the last time. Generally, it's always been above $3. It's been closer to $4. Sometimes it's been higher than $4, but that certainly helps.
According to data from Gas Buddy released on Monday, average gas prices have now dipped below $3 per gallon in 37 states, below $2.75 per gallon in 22 states, and below $2.50 per gallon in 5 states. Just a few years ago, we saw record high price gas of nearly $5 per gallon. American families faced constant pain at the pump, and those costs caused the price of everything else to go up as well. In fact, the average cost for a gallon of regular...
Are you on the West Coast, Faye? Are you like California, like Washington, Oregon, something like that?
Gas in the country was the most expensive price.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You know, I mean, the problem there is that the state governments have levied their own additional taxes on top of everything else. They are bleeding you guys dry. It's terrible.
During a presidential term in U.S. history under Biden's disastrous leadership, even with them recklessly draining our strategic reserves to try and artificially...
Oh, whoa. Denise just paid $1.99 in Southwest Missouri. That's awesome.
Decrease prices. But thanks to President Trump, those days are long behind us. In the months ahead, Americans can expect prices to fall even further. We know that when gas gets cheaper, everything else gets cheaper too. And that's what this president is focusing on. Americans can also expect another boost to their bank accounts in the months ahead, as 2026 tax refund season is upon us after the holidays, and it's projected to be the largest ever, thanks to President Trump's passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. According to recent analysis from Piper Sandler, when Americans file their taxes early next year, their refunds could be about 1/3 larger than usual, or roughly an extra $1,000 per filer. That is money straight into the pockets of the American people. It's only because of President Trump and Republicans' leadership that Americans will now pay no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security.
Unfortunately, though, if you're a member or a resident of a number of Democrat states, you are still going to pay taxes on those things, even though the administration is essentially making them null and void. And that's because of the state governments. The state governments are asking their citizens to pay because they don't want to miss on revenue that would otherwise go into somebody else's pocket. I believe it was California, Illinois, New York, and there is another state, and I'm drawing a blank at this moment, but that's terrible. That is another thing that I think is going to have a major impact on the way Americans feel about the people who are running their various principalities. And anything that you can do to get involved in the process doesn't just have to be voting. I mean, I would highly recommend that people don't simply rely on voting. I think that local activism, and I've been talking about this for years, haven't talked about it much recently, but I have had so many people reach out to me, either as a result of watching this show, seeing people that I've interviewed, or simply being inspired to get out there and do something. People who are directly involved in their local communities, trying to hold their public officials accountable. Because the only time that these people care is when we notice. If they can get away with things, then they're going to do everything in their power to get away with things. Now, case in point, take a look at this. Caroline Leavitt had an exchange with Caitlin Collins in this exact same press conference. And, of course, it's CNN, so CNN tried to drop some fake news. Caroline Leavitt essentially told her to go pound sand.
Mixed signals in terms of what that looks like.
But inflation is down from where it was. As measured by the overall CPI, it has slowed to an average 2.5% pace. This is down from what the president inherited. The president inherited 2.9% in January. Today it's at about 2.5%. So we're trending in the right direction with more to come. And I would remind you, when President Trump left office in his first term, inflation was 1.7%. And the previous administration jacked it up to a record high 9%. So again, in 10 months, the president has clawed us out of this hole. He's kept it low at 2.5%, and we believe that number is going to continue to decline, especially as energy and oil prices continue to decline as well.
It wasn't high under Biden. They're just saying it's not. Well,
Tom says, Caitlin Collins still effing clueless. That's the worst part, Tom. She's not clueless. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows how disingenuous she is. She knows how her questions are structured to be gotchas for the administration. She knows that it's fake news. She's going to be presenting it to her audience as if, oh, I asked the tough questions to the administration and they deflected on this or that. And their brain dead audience is not going to think critically about what's actually happening. And if they happen to live in one of those Democrat-controlled states that we just talked about, their prices are not going down. Their gas is not going down. They're not going to feel the benefit of these tax reductions or eliminations. And unfortunately, those people are going to believe still, because of people like Caitlin Collins or J.B. Pritzker or Gavin Newsom, that the problem is President Trump, when it's the exact opposite.
Nobody reported on it being high under Biden. My predecessor was standing at this podium, but now you want to ask me a lot of questions about it, which I'm happy to answer. But I will just add, there's a lot more scrutiny on this issue from this press corps than there was. Well, and the previous administration said that too. My predecessor stood up at this podium and she said inflation doesn't exist. She said the border was secure, and people like you just took her at her word, and those were two utter lies. Everything I'm telling you is the truth, backed by real factual data, and you just don't want to report on it because you want to push untrue narratives about the president.
Yeah, because you're a fake news progenitor. You just want to bring this stuff out and try to impugn the character and the moves that the president is making. Now, speaking of fake news, Bari Weiss has had this remarkable resurgence in popularity and relevance recently because she's now running the CBS News desk. And she has typically been a sort of brain-dead liberal commentator who at times strays from that main narrative. Now, I have really never tracked Bari Weiss other than knowing that she had bad opinions on certain things. But apparently, a lot of people are looking to Bari Weiss as some kind of modern-day messiah for the mainstream media because of the changes she's making at CBS. Mark my words. Bari Weiss is not going to change anything sufficiently to make CBS News a source you can trust. Bari Weiss is also actively working to shut down free speech in the United States of America. She was just speaking at it's like a World Jewish Congress event or something like that recently, and she was talking about the dangers of people like Tucker Carlson or smaller podcasters like myself, because we don't have a problem talking about things that they would rather we shut up about. Now, Tucker Carlson recently went on Theo Von's podcast, and he had some choice comments regarding Bari Weiss. You may remember a clip that I played about Bari Weiss years ago. She was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and she called Tulsi Gabbard a toady for Assad, because when Tulsi Gabbard was in Congress, she was one of the only people who went to go speak with Assad to try to see what could be done to avoid war so that American lives were not being spent unnecessarily in the middle of this war that we had really no business to be in, that was totally manufactured by the Obama administration. So take a listen to this.
They just had that lady Bari Weiss or whatever her name is, and she was on ABC.
One of the greatest liars in our public life.
Did you see this video she said? I think she mentioned you in it.
Unbelievable liar.
I just made her the head of CBS.
That I'm beginning to sort of reckon with right now is the extent of profound anti-American and anti-Jewish sentiment on large parts of the American right.
This is such bullshit. There is no anti-American sentiment on the right. There may be anti-Israeli sentiment on the right because people have really taken notice that a small country in the Middle East seems to have an outsized level of influence in Congress and in Washington, D.C., with a tremendous amount of money flowing in. Also, at the World Jewish Congress, one of the main topics was that any candidate that exhibits anything that we deem to be anti-Semitic, we will crush them, we will outspend them, we will make sure that somebody beats them in whatever race they are, whether it's the state, local, or federal races, we will get rid of them. Now, Bari Weiss is only really, truly talking about anti-Israeli, but she says anti-Jewish because it has to be anti-Semitic. It has to be racist.
A lot of the illiberalism on the left that came from the fringe into the mainstream of the Democratic Party began as a fringe online movement that a lot of
What
Democrats
does
and a
this
lot of
mean?
liberals waved away because it was just some crazy influencers online. And woe to the people that still are telling themselves that and still believe that the things that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are saying will not make an impact on the right, because they will.
Everything about that is just so amazing to me. I'm anti-American, really.
That's
Family's been here for 400 years. I have no allegiance to any foreign country. I put my country first, and it takes a lot of balls for Barry Weiss, who acts openly on behalf of a foreign country. Her only concerns are not American concerns. They pertain to the fortunes of a foreign country.
Do they really?
Oh, yeah, yes. Yes, I'm not. That's an informed statement. And calling me anti-American, you can say that Carlson's an asshole or whatever, but she has to call me the one thing that she is, which is like this weird psychology, I have to say.
Anyways, this is the new narrative that we are seeing all over the place. If you question Israel, you are in fact questioning America. You are anti-American, but that is not the truth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, this is not, in my opinion, the prevailing thoughts of the administration, and we have talked about many different things at many different times. We don't have the time today to go through all of them, but what I see happening in the administration is a decoupling of the United States from these foreign relationships in order to focus on what is truly the best for the United States of America. Now, I am, with a heavy heart, reporting to you that once again, a grand jury in Virginia has declined to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud. This happened earlier today, and it's now the second time that federal prosecutors have been unable to secure an indictment against this woman, despite the fact that she has clearly broken the law. Now, what I would like to say is that if there is any doubt in people's minds that the reason she is not being indicted is not because there is a lack of evidence, but instead because she is Letitia James, then, I don't know what to tell you. All right, because I would imagine that if anyone else had been named in a charge, in a list of charges such as this, they would have been found guilty by the grand jury and they would be prosecuted. We did a good thing getting Letitia James indicted that first time, but these next two times, the case is out there. People have already heard about it. If it's at all possible that these jurors that have been chosen to sit on these grand juries have not heard what's happened or about the sort of general brouhaha surrounding Letitia Pkwy James, I would be very surprised. So now we have failed to convince a majority of grand jurors to approve these charges. What are the charges? That she misled a bank to obtain favorable loans on a home mortgage. The circumstances surrounding this case are very cut and dry. Letitia James has been charged with two crimes: bank fraud under 18 U.S.C. Section 1344 and false statements to a financial institution under 18 U.S.C. Section 1014. This is all related to the single property that she owns in Norfolk, Virginia. It's called the Perrone property because it's on Perrone Street. So from the indictment, she was to use this property as her secondary residence. It was prohibited from being used as a timeshare or any other shared ownership arrangement or an agreement that requires her either to rent the property or give any other person any other control of or occupancy to use that property. But we all know Letitia James treated this property on Perrone Street as if it was an investment vehicle. On her Schedule E form, she paid taxes on the rental income. This is a contradiction of her claims of it being a secondary residence. She never lived there. She never moved herself in there. The utilities were not in her name. Because Judge Cameron McGowan Curry, who is a Clinton appointee, had ruled that U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was invalidly appointed, the very first set of indictments were dismissed, but without prejudice, meaning that the government can come back as many times as they want and try to get the indictment. So federal prosecutors have now, for some reason, failed to indict a second time, even though the evidence, as far as I'm aware, has not changed. The good news about this is that they can continue to go. They can continue to call in additional grand juries and get these charges filed against her, put Letitia James into a position where she's going to be held to the strictest standard of justice, just as I would, just as anyone else here in the chat would. But this is not the only venue that they have to charge Letitia James with crimes similar to this, because as we have talked about on so many different occasions, Letitia James has a pattern of behavior in multiple states, multiple jurisdictions, where she has done the exact same thing. New York, Georgia, several times in Virginia. But for some reason, they are starting with this case. I think that ultimately, what they are attempting to do is to break the seal so that they can have Letitia James convicted. And then once they have the conviction, well, then, of course, they can go for these other cases, because it'll be far easier to get these other cases prosecuted if they can go to the grand jury and say, look, she's already being convicted of doing the exact same thing in a different venue in a different part of the country. Either way, for the time being, Letitia James is not out of the woods. And I'm sure she's out there saying, like, once again, I've been vindicated, peekaboo. But that's not the case. Letitia James has been vindicated from nothing. She still broke the law. She still lied to the bank. She still lied everywhere else. And this was against the law. So Letitia James, once again, going to have more charges brought before a grand jury. Hopefully the third time's the charm. All right, now, we also have another ruling, which is coming from U.S. District Judge Paula Zinnis, this time an Obama appointee. She is, of course, in Maryland. We've spoken about her on many different occasions. She is a thorn in the side of the administration, and she has now ordered the immediate release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. She argues that he's being detained without lawful authority. She wrote in her decision, since Abrego Garcia's return from wrongful detention in El Salvador, he has been redetained, again, without lawful authority. For this reason, the court will grant Abrego Garcia's petition for immediate release from ICE custody. So, as you all know, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the eponymous Maryland man, is actually simply an illegal alien who has been residing in Maryland for quite some time. He has already been deported. He has already been sent to El Salvador earlier this year and put into Cocot prison, which is a hellhole. It's not supposed to be a summer camp, but they put him in probably the nicest part of Cocot because they knew that there would be this prevailing narrative that he was being mistreated. But it's radical left-wing judges who have ordered him to be returned to the U.S. Okay, so we brought him back. Well, his wife beater, he is a wife beater. He's a gang member. He's a human trafficker. He is alleged to have traded sexual favors with minors to traffic them across the country. He's already had a prior order of deportation that was put in place by an immigration judge, but he was not to be sent home to his home country of El Salvador. So that's why the Trump administration had decided to potentially send him to Africa, Uganda to be specific. Now, Abrego Garcia, immediately upon hearing that order, put up a legal fight to stop his deportation. He's probably getting the best free representation that you can get. And he said, I fear persecution in Uganda on account of my race. I guess they hate El Salvadorans in Uganda. That's a new one for me. Or his nationality, his political opinion, membership in a particular social group. I also fear torture by or at the acquiescence of a public official in that country. Judge Zinnis is overseeing a civil habeas corpus case that was brought in Maryland by Abrego Garcia's wife. He is also fighting a separate federal criminal trial in Tennessee because a grand jury there, thankfully, has indicted him on human trafficking charges. Now, over the summer, a federal grand jury had indicted Kilmar Abrego Garcia for the transportation of undocumented migrants across the United States of America. He was also charged with one count of conspiracy to transport aliens and one count of unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens. So his release from ICE detention has nothing to do with this case down in Tennessee. Theoretically, I suppose they could transfer him into the custody of the authorities down in Tennessee. But this is, again, not the last that you're going to hear about this. The DOJ and ICE and DHS, undoubtedly, they will have additional filings in response to Judge Paula Zinnis, and we will report on it as we find out. Let me say thank you to my mother, Real Red Pill 78 Mom. Please send some prayers to my friend Ed. I was just told he is in critical condition in hospital with pneumonia. His lungs were compromised years ago from chemo. Okay, Ed, Mom, see about if it's possible for him to nebulize DMSO, because that is something that I have heard a lot of people have used when they have specific types of lung damage. I don't know. Obviously, you know the website that I work with, onenessdrops.com/BOGO Red Pill 78. You can get a buy one, get one free on everything during the month of the month of December. But if his lungs are in a bad spot, then see if you can get him to nebulize DMSO, because that might be, I mean, it's totally worth trying if he's already in critical condition. Nothing is going to hurt at this point. I'm sorry to hear that. Please pray for Ed, you guys. And then Lee Walden says, the old myth that the grand jury can indict a ham sandwich has been crushed. The Twilight Zone is a reality. After all time for a new menu. Amen. All right. Now, let's get into Congress. Let's get into the failures of our Congress. Okay, so the House has just passed the National Defense Authorization Bill. This is what funds the Pentagon and all of our armed forces, all of our security and all of that. It's a $900 billion military defense bill. And quite a few conservatives are saying that it is loaded up with useless and wasteful pork, and I agree with them. But this bill was negotiated with Democrats in the House and the Senate, which resulted in a bipartisan vote, and the people who care about America are definitely not happy. Now, after an earlier procedural vote on this legislation just barely passed, it was 215 to 211, there were 4 Republican representatives, Anna Paulina Luna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tim Burchett, and Lauren Boebert, who all changed their votes from no to yes. All Democrats voted no on the procedural rule. Now, House and Senate leaders have already combined their own versions of this legislation into one negotiated package, which means that it's going to sail right through the Senate and it's going to end up on President Trump's desk. Now, Mike Johnson is saying that these provisions offer enlisted troops a 4% pay raise. Okay, cool. They eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, crack down on anti-Semitism, whatever the hell that means, eliminates $20 billion in spending on obsolete programs. Okay, I can get behind that, and Pentagon bureaucracy and policies that crack down on China. So, in a victory for conservative privacy hawks like Jim Jordan, the legislation also includes a non-defense provision that would mandate FBI disclosure when the FBI was investigating presidential candidates and other candidates for federal office. Why couldn't they pass that without sticking it into the NDAA? I don't know, but not all Republicans on board. 18 Republicans voted against and 115 Democrats voted in favor. Tim Burchett explains why he was a no vote, and we have a video of him. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Wait for this to be finished. And don't worry, we're going to go over some of the specifics, some of the reasons why I'm angry about it.
Just leaving.
Okay. Now, before we hear this from Tim Burchett, probably one of the biggest slaps in the face is the fact that this NDAA includes nearly $1 billion in additional United States funding for the Ukrainian war, another $800 million. But they are refusing to vote for the $2,000 Trump tariff rebate checks for Americans. Now, that would be something that would probably go over gangbusters. Giving $2,000 checks to Americans based upon the money that we're bringing in, money that wouldn't have to be borrowed from the Fed and then be added to the national debt. No, this would be money that goes straight into the hands of people like us, because President Trump has negotiated all of these business deals, but they are refusing to vote on it. And it's one of those things that they refuse to include in the NDAA. But they are perfectly happy to throw another $800 million good after bad. Think about all of the money that we've already had sent over to Ukraine, and what have we gotten as a return on our money? Absolutely nothing. A bunch of dead bodies rotting in the Ukrainian fields. Cannon fodder for future croplands. That is the only thing that we have from the war in Ukraine. Now, take a listen to Tim Burchett explaining why he voted no. I'm going to guess and say that that $800 million for Ukraine probably factored into it.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett, just leaving the House floor. Big vote tonight was the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, and it was $900.6 billion. There's money in there for, of course, Ukraine, $800 million total, and some other things. Money in there for recognizing an Indian tribe out of North Carolina. Has nothing to do with national defense. Syria, money, Iraq.
What do you want to bet when we recognize that Indian tribe in North Carolina? Immediately, they're going to have a new casino built there in no time flat. And then the representatives from North Carolina who will be, overseeing that district, they're going to get a ton of money as a result of that casino bill.
Look, we just got to quit this stuff. America's got to start paying attention. And the Ukraine stuff's not even, Trump didn't even ask for that. You've got the war pimps that push for this stuff, and they always will tell you, it's the Burchett, man, they're going to spend all that money here buying those missiles. Is that what we...
So then we're just giving them free missiles. So who cares? I mean, it's not like a net benefit. We're coming up with $800 million to put it in their pockets, and then they're going to buy some missiles from us. I guarantee you a large chunk of that money is also going to go straight into the pockets of some of the most corrupt people in Eastern Europe.
We are basing...
And also back here in D.C.
Our votes on is they're going to buy implements to kill other people on. I mean, I'm all for getting rid of our enemies, but this is just too much. It's way too much. And things are just not what they appear. We need to wake up. I voted no. Over 100 Democrats voted to pass this. That ought to tell you right there what this is about. Got some liberal stuff tucked in there, and it's over 3,000 pages. We get it on Sunday, and we're voting on it today. There's no way we will ever know what was in there. And it's just, anyway, frustrated. We'll keep fighting them.
God bless Tim Burchett. Dadgummit, Tim Burchett's one of the only people in Congress that is actually fighting. You know what? There are other people. I will give some props to a couple of different people in today's show. But Tim Burchett, I do like him. He never does anything that I don't like. Now, here is a positive from the NDAA. Representative Glenn Rothman appeared with John Solomon on Just the News to discuss some of the cuts that we do find in there. One thing that should warm everybody's heart is that the Pentagon is voluntarily cutting about 19 to 20% of civilian jobs inside the Department of War. That's going to save roughly $30 billion. And of course, that would be on an annual basis. So the Department of Defense, one of the only agencies in the government that is still working to step up and then pare back the amount of money that they're spending. Now, of course, one of the reasons they're able to do that is because we've got highly sophisticated means of killing people in the modern age. The good thing is that, for the most part, we're not doing that. But when we're given $800 million to Ukraine, you can only imagine how many deaths that $800 million is going to result in. So we're talking about 760,000 employees that are within the Pentagon currently. We're going to take about 19-20% of that. Those people are going to end up, going into different areas of the workforce. One of the reasons why it's so important that we bring the manufacturing base back to the United States. And they're not going to stop there. They're actually hoping to reduce that further. This is a specific recommendation from DOJ on how they could streamline the Department of War. But there are a lot more federal employees that are essentially useless at the end of the day. And Pete Hegseth and DOJ at the Pentagon are working on that. We are hoping to see more cuts coming. And either way, there will be a lot of positive things happening in 2026. But when we see them doing these things at the end of the year, it really chaps my ass. And it chaps my ass even more when I see them handing $800 million to a failed and undemocratic Eastern European nation, while at the same time refusing to vote on Trump tariff rebate checks for Americans who could sure as hell use them, especially at Christmas time. But they also, of course, have completely dropped the ball on the Obamacare situation. Right now in Congress, in the Senate, there were two battling bills, one of them from the Democrats, one of them from the Republicans. And the Senate has failed to advance the Republican health care plan. It was a vote that was 51-48. Now, guess what? GOP Senator Rand Paul voted with the Democrats. Senators Bill Cassidy and Mike Crapo introduced the bill. This would allow the Obamacare tax subsidies to expire, and it would expand health savings accounts. President Trump has already said, I want the money to be given to the American people so they can make the decisions on their own health care. Now, if they gave us health savings accounts, that money went into those accounts, then when I go to the doctor and I'm not paying for medical insurance because it's over $1,000 a month for me as a single person, then I could use that healthcare subsidy money, or it's not even a subsidy, it's going to be coming out of the tariff money. I could use that money to make sure that if I need to go to the doctor, I can. I could use that money to pay for my prescriptions. I could use that money to go to the emergency room if I get into a car accident, anything like that, rather than just throwing wads of cash at the insurance companies. But the pharmaceutical industrial complex and the healthcare industrial complex and the health insurance industrial complex, they all put a lot of money into Washington, D.C. Now, 60 votes is what we need to get anything passed in the Senate. It's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get anything done. The other bill that failed to pass was a Chuck Schumer-backed health care bill, but not many people voted for that as well. So the Republican drafted proposal would set up that health savings account for people who buy their health insurance on the Affordable Care Act marketplace. It failed to advance on a largely party line vote. The Democrats all voted against it, along with Rand Paul. So Rand Paul's vote at this point is ceremonial. The plan was drafted by Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee Chair Bill Cassidy and Senate Finance Committee Chair Mike Crapo, follows President Trump's exhortations to redirect federal subsidies that have gone to insurance companies and instead go directly to the people. So the Cassidy-Crapo plan would convert the value of funding for enhanced premium tax credits under the ACA into federal contributions to health savings accounts to defray out-of-pocket health care costs. And Democrats apparently had their own version. I'm not real clear on what they actually put in there. However, Caroline Leavitt did comment on it at the press briefing earlier today, and she said Chuck Schumer's bill was smoke and mirrors. Let's take a listen.
About to expire. Which plan does the White House support?
Again, I have told you now a few times that the president and the Republicans will continue
Jane, you ignorant slut.
to unveil creative ideas and solutions to the healthcare crisis that was created by Democrats. And I know Chuck Schumer is putting up a vote today. This is a political show vote. Chuck Schumer is not sincerely interested in lowering healthcare costs for the American people. He's putting this vote on the floor knowing that it will fail so he can have another talking point that he can throw around without any real plan or action. If Chuck Schumer actually wanted to lower healthcare costs, I'm sure the president would welcome him and his entire Democrat caucus to a legitimate coordination on the president's policies of bringing down drug prices, these most favored nation deals. Why hasn't Chuck Schumer ever come out in support of those? Those are going to legitimately, they already are, lower drug prices for the American people, and not a word from Chuck Schumer on it. So I think that just proves this is completely political.
It's completely political, and because they need 60 votes to get anything passed, they're not going to get anything passed. This also is a real-world consequence of inaction by members of Congress, which are now, it will begin to affect every single person who relies on their health care to make sure that they don't die. Now, I have a real-world example right here of someone, an American citizen, a voter on the East Coast, who has been directly affected by the changes to our nation that were put in place by the Biden regime. Before we play this clip for you, though, I have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. All right, now, take a look at that QR code on screen. You can see in that picture there is a very comfortable vest. You can step into comfort that moves with you. The Solana Gear heated vest is not just outerwear. It's a performance-driven heat system designed to keep you warm anywhere, anytime. It's got rapid heat technology, lightweight insulation, and a sleek, modern fit that's going to look great on you. This vest delivers instant warmth without the bulk. Whether you're hitting the outdoors, traveling, filming on location, or powering through cold mornings, Solana Gear keeps you warm with just the tap of a button. It's USB-powered, weather-ready, and crafted for all-day wear. It's the perfect blend of innovation and everyday style. So don't let the cold limit your adventures. Winter is a beautiful season to explore. Get this heated vest now and enjoy warmth with just one tap. And right now, you can get the heated vest for 60% off. Snag this before it's gone and use that QR code right there or the link that you're going to see in the chat or below the video to get on over there and pick it up. If you're in a cold climate or you're out there for the winter, then it's a great idea. All right, so this right here is a moment where an American voter in New York calls in to C-SPAN and attempts to speak to a Democrat representative from Nevada. He tells her point blank what the choices and decisions that have been made by the Democrats have done to affect him and his health care. And he tells her point blank, I am dying. What do you have to Dennis. What do you have to say for yourself? This is Dennis in New York.
Next in New York, Republican line. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, I'm a veteran collecting Medicare. I've been trying to get cholesterol and blood pressure medicine under the Biden administration since 2021 to 2024. And I always had a hard time getting a prescription refilled or anything else. It got to the point I actually went down to the office in Western New York Medical. The whole room was filled with illegal immigrants going in and out. I couldn't even get to the counter to get a refill on prescription cholesterol and blood pressure medicine. Anyhow, long story short, a month ago, I was rushed into the hospital with heart failure and that, and I get there, and for the last 6 months, I come to find out that I got kidney failure and congestive heart failure. Not one doctor from Western New York Medical called to notify me. They knew about this for over a year, and now here I am, and I listen to you Democrats saying that illegal immigrants weren't collecting Medicare and it wasn't hurting the American people. I'm dying right now because of them illegal immigrants getting in line before me, and our medical system and our healthcare system didn't even call to notify me to let me know about this a year ago. Do you have a response for your party and what they're doing to the American people?
Now, listen to her response. She is as cold as ice. A real see you next Tuesday.
Well, let me say I'm sorry for your health problems, and you should have gone to your member of Congress and asked him to help intervene for you with Medicare, but Biden's gone, so let's talk about what you can do in the future. As far as blaming on the immigrants, U.S. law says that immigrants do not qualify for Medicare.
No shit, Sherlock. Everybody knows that U.S. law says that immigrants don't qualify for Medicare. However, we also know that it was policy under the Biden administration to give these people Social Security numbers and to just wave them through on all of the entitlement programs. It doesn't matter what the law says. It doesn't matter what anybody said except for the people who were approving them, which were because of the past administration and because of those decisions, because those people were allowed to get onto the welfare rolls, because they were allowed to get FHA home loans that were guaranteed by the U.S. government. Americans, like this guy in New York, got shut out. And to make matters even worse, his doctors knew that he was dying. His doctors were aware of his kidney failure and his heart failure, and they didn't even call. And she's got this shit-eating grin on her face.
So I don't know who was in front of you in line, but let's look at what can help solve it now instead of just blaming other people.
Let's look. I'm sorry about your health, but let's look at what we can do now without blaming other people. Bitch, I'm dying. Did you hear what he said? He is dying. There's nothing that they can do about it now. The time to do something about it was a year ago when his doctors diagnosed him with these fatal maladies and chose not to say anything. You know what they were probably thinking? Another dead Republican. Let's just get rid of him. Let's just not say anything about it. He'll die, and then we won't have to bother. Because once he's gone, he's certainly not going to be bitching anymore about all of the illegals that we're allowing on to the welfare rolls. Let's see. Lee says, Zach, can the boss veto these bills and force line item bills? They're already supposed to do line item bills. The boss can veto any bill that he wants. So, yes, I mean, it is possible. But, you know, unfortunately, the National Defense Authorization Act is one of those things because it funds the military, and that is so vitally important to the national security of the United States. It's also one of the reasons why they stuff these sorts of things in there, is because they don't get vetoed. All right. You know, I mean, like you come and oh, why is President Trump refusing to fund the United States military? You know, his largest voting bloc. It's a trap. It's a trap. It's always a trap. That's why they put these things in the NDAA. Yeah, he won't be bitching or voting, DJ Tinfoil, and they probably don't care. I mean, you've seen all the clips of people online, left-wing healthcare professionals who said, God help you if you're a Trump supporter and you come into my office because I'm probably going to give you sepsis, or I'm just not going to tell you that you've got skin cancer and I'm going to let you die because I don't care, because I don't like your politics and I don't like who you're voting for. So Chuck Grassley has responded to President Trump because the other night he went off on Grassley and Republicans in the Senate over the blue slip stuff because they have failed to act on President Trump's nominations. Now, to their credit, this week they did just do another batch of like 100 people that President Trump has put forward, but they haven't done it for Lindsey Halligan. They didn't do it for Alina Habba. They haven't done it for the all-stars that we needed in there, the people who were truly going to bat for the president. So Chuck Grassley responded. If you remember the blue slip custom, it defers judicial nominations to home state senators. So if the president is trying to put forward a conservative nominee in a liberal state, which is frankly the only way that we would be able to get any traction in a place like that where they have already clearly taken over, unless the senators of those blue states agree, then that person is never going to be able to make it through the nomination process. And, you know, I mean, it's a custom. It's not a rule. This is something that the Democrats have just foregone in the past. And Democrats don't mind like foregoing this custom. They don't care about pomp and circumstance and rules and traditions. It's only the Republicans who seem to have no spine when it comes to helping the president get his agenda into play. So during this roundtable event, President Trump blamed Chuck Grassley for allowing the Democrats to stonewall nominees. It's partially true. The Democrats certainly have a hand to play in it, but I think Grassley and the Republicans also have a huge hand to play in it. He said, I can't appoint anybody. Everybody I've appointed, their time has expired. Then they're in default, and then we're losing. So Grassley responded to Trump's criticism and said his committee has processed more U.S. attorneys than the previous administration. Okay, good. But are you done yet? It's been almost a year. And everybody knows, especially your committee, is fully aware of how many nominees need to be processed and what the time constraints on those nominees are. So let's just say me, all right? My show is scheduled at 5 p.m. every single day. And every single day, I don't show up till 7, 8, 9 o'clock, or I wait until 9 o'clock, and then I put a tweet out and say, sorry, guys, I'm out here having too much fun. I don't have time to do my show today. You know what? I was just staying up late watching movies last night, and so I didn't get enough sleep, and I slept through my alarm, and so there's no show today. Sorry about that. But then I come at 10 p.m. I do a show. Hey, at least I did a show. At least I did a show. Or like if you take your car to a mechanic, and they are going to do a brake job for you, and they repair 2 of the brakes, but then the other 2, they charge you for them, but then they don't actually fix them. And then they come and they ask you to pay. You drive away and your car's brakes are squealing and squeaking. You drive back and you say, well, I paid you for 4 brakes, not for 2 brakes. What's going on? Oh, you know what? You ought to be grateful that we did anything at all. Sure, we charged you for all 4, but at least we did half the job. Okay. Well, you certainly did more breaks than anybody else because I didn't take it anywhere. We don't have any other Congress we can go to. There's no other committee to have these people moved through so that they can be confirmed in the Senate. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. I don't care, Chuck Grassley, that you've processed more nominees than the last administration. What matters is that you haven't finished them now, and everybody's time has expired. After this morning's meeting, I can do a pretty good Chuck Grassley, I think. After this morning's meeting, we have voted on 84 nominees, including the Attorney General, the FBI Director, 6 circuit judges, 24 district judges, and 36 U.S. attorneys. We've advanced judicial nominees as fast as our committee receives them. I don't know if that's true. And we've confirmed more federal judges at this point than President Trump did in his first administration. Well, he didn't have Republican control of the Senate in his first administration. The Heritage Foundation recently reported that our committee has held hearings for 96% of the judicial nominations it has received, which is higher than for any new president since 1980. Okay, so I get into a car accident, and I only kill half your family. Hey, at least I didn't kill the whole family. At least I did that for you. So, big wins, Chuck. I'm glad that you're doing something, but it's still not enough. You set the bar a little higher, all right? You're going from like the lowest possible bar. I've had tremendous respect for Chuck Grassley over the years, but right now, seeing the administration have such difficulty getting their agenda across the finish line is definitely pissing me off. Despite relentless and unprecedented obstruction by the Democrats, we've reported more U.S. attorneys out of committee than the Biden administration did at this point, and we're confirming them at roughly the same rate. As with judicial nominees, I'd like to process even more U.S. attorneys, but I'm hamstrung waiting for background investigations and other paperwork from the administration that the committee needs to advance the nominees we haven't already moved. In short, the Judiciary Committee has been hard at work advancing quality nominees and getting them to work for the American people. As I've noted before, a recent nonpartisan study found that judges nominated by President Trump have outperformed those of our recent administrations in terms of productivity, quality, and independence. I look forward to that continued trend and to advancing more excellent nominees in the coming year. Grassley, however, blamed the DHS. He blamed Kristi Noem for declining to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee this month. I'm sorry. From what I can tell, Kristi Noem has been pretty busy with the DHS. She's been pretty busy trying to make sure we process as many illegal aliens as possible, get these terrorists out of the country. On another matter, I'd like to discuss this committee's invitation to Secretary Noem to appear for an oversight hearing. I invited Secretary Noem to testify on December 2nd and then December 10th. She declined both invitations. DHS has failed to provide alternative dates. During her confirmation process, Secretary Noem committed to appearing before this committee when invited. I expect better cooperation from the Secretary early next year. I am certain that Kristi Noem will testify. And sure enough, she actually came to Capitol Hill to testify today. Now, let me tell you, another thing that Congress refused to take up was the issue of insider trading, which I think every single one of us bristles knowing that that is going on, knowing how fantastically wealthy these corrupt civil servants, public servants are, that they go to Washington, D.C. with $100 in their bank account and they come home a couple of years later with $30 to $75 million. God, if only every single one of us could just go to Congress for one term, we would all be set for life. But they refused to address that. They also refused to address the $40 million a week that we are still paying to the Taliban in Afghanistan. Now, they attempted to have that addressed, and the Senate refused to address it. So, Anna Paulina Luna, somebody else who I am developing a greater level of respect for on a daily basis. A lot of people complain about her. Many of my colleagues think that she's a joke. But just like Tim Burchett, I see her working. I see her out there. I see her pounding the pavement. Sure, she's out there talking about the things that she wants done. And some people interpret that to mean that she's not doing the things that she's talking about. But I don't see that, because guess what? she reached out, along with Tim Burchett, directly to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And Marco Rubio is actually taking care of the problem of $40 million a week going to the Taliban. This is, again, something Senate Republicans did not even want to touch. Why would they not want to talk about the fact that we are paying $40 million a week to the Taliban in Afghanistan? I mean, I know that we're trying to build relationships, but they got everything that we left behind. They got all of that military equipment. We basically turned Afghanistan into the most technologically proficient military fighting force in Central Asia when we left all of that stuff behind. So, because the Senate refused to address the $40 million a week going to the Taliban in the National Defense Authorization Act, where they were fine adding all of this other garbage, Secretary Rubio is the one who is actually now stopping the money that is going to the Taliban. So Secretary Rubio, she says, shall now be known as Based Secretary Rubio. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, here she is on the steps of the House discussing this and a couple of things that I just mentioned. So I think that this is why she ended up voting yes on the NDAA.
So we actually just switched our votes and we got guarantees. We talked to the Secretary of State directly.
Okay, so we got guarantees. She said we switched our votes and we got guarantees. We talked to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They've got stopping the funding to the Taliban.
And got guarantees that any NGOs that are funneling American tax dollars to the Taliban are officially going to be cut off. So he's personally...
Okay, so all of the NGOs that are funding the Taliban, not just money coming directly from the United States government, they are all cut off. Marco Rubio has already said we are ending the NGO pipeline, so no NGOs are going to be getting money from the United States government anymore. That is pretty huge.
Dogging that's a huge deal because, as you know, there have been reports that our American taxpayer dollars are still going $40 million a week to the Taliban. So that was something that the Senate didn't want to specifically add in the provisions of the NDA. We got the guarantees from the Secretary of State, so we're going outside of the Senate, going directly to the Secretary of State, which is great. And then also, too, Elizabeth Warren gutted the anti-CBDC.
Okay, now a lot of people have complained about the fact that the CBDC provision had been stripped out of the NDAA and they were going after Republicans. I never saw them blaming any Democrats, but it was actually Elizabeth Warren who somehow wrangled the removal of the CBDC provision, meaning that no CBDCs, no central bank digital currencies shall ever be the financial plan of the United States of America, meaning that we won't have an official digital currency, which would give the government total control to an even greater degree over the monetary supply, and it would turn all of it into even faker fiat funds.
CBDC legislation out of the NDAA. We have a guarantee that the House of Representatives will go to war with the Senate. So House side will go to war with Senate over that to ensure that it's made permanent, not just a 5-year extension that they wanted to put on the appropriations. And then there's also some other...
Hold on. So she said she got the guarantee that we are going to completely address CBDCs in a single issue bill, and CBDCs will be banned in the United States for all eternity. And Lisa, I see that you sent me a text. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Next.
Stuff that we got a guarantee for.
Other stuff we got a guarantee for?
On something that we've been very vocal. Maybe the hint is banning insider trading. So you'll
banning insider trading. All right. So they will be addressing the banning of insider trading. And with as much attention as Luna and Burchett and others have paid to this, I think that this is going in the right direction.
Was the president involved in any of these negotiations?
No, we talked directly with the Speaker, the Secretary of War, Secretary of State, Secretary of War we talked to earlier about that. And then also Burchett, he's been the one that's really been leading the charge on the anti-funding for the Taliban efforts, and you heard directly from the Secretary of State.
Yeah, Secretary of State.
Step down.
I'm sorry, dude.
Next, sir.
Got it? Got it. Secretary of State was very kind and agreed to work with me on making sure that.
Hamburger helper? Who thinks that? I mean, is it just the Are you suggesting that there are people on the right who think that Muslims are immediately virtuous? I would like to go on record and say that evil lives in the heart of all men, regardless of their professed religion, their obvious race, their creed, or their national origin. Evil knows no boundaries. It doesn't matter who you are, you can be corrupted and you can work on behalf of Satan. And we see it every day. Now, President Trump is also directly calling out the president of Colombia. Things are obviously heating up, probably, in my opinion, for a number of different reasons in Venezuela. From my perspective, the operations that we see in Venezuela, although we are now being given the election fraud Smartmatic stuff, I don't think that that is the only goal that we have there. I think that the CIA definitely has had an election fraud pipeline that was well established with the Smartmatic software that was developed in Venezuela, exported around the world. But even before that, the CIA had their cocaine trafficking pipeline that had been set up in South America. I think that this is all about ending the flow of drugs, stopping the money going into the hands of the intelligence community so that they can run black ops on the people of the United States, paying for psyops and funneling money to candidates, putting money into NGOs. And obviously, Colombia is like the place that cocaine truly originates from oftentimes. And the president of Colombia has had some public spars with President Trump. But if the president of Colombia is truly interested in keeping his country safe, well, then he would want to get rid of cocaine too. Of course, you can't come out when you're ruling a nation where cocaine is the largest single import. If you talk about this openly, then you're probably going to put a target on your back. I think that Maduro in Venezuela is probably at the whim of the people controlling cocaine in his country, in the same way that the President Petro, I think his name is, of Colombia, would be at the whim of the people controlling the cocaine trade in his country. But President Trump has already said, we are taking out all of those cocaine boats for the reason that we don't want them here in America. Now that we've stopped it coming through the Caribbean Sea, we are going to move inland. Colombia would be a natural target, along with the jungles of Venezuela, where we know this stuff is being produced. Mexico is another obvious target.
We have three countries sending drugs to the U.S., Mexico, Venezuela, and Colombia. And you talked to the president of Mexico, you already talked to Nicolas Maduro. Have you considered talking to the president of Colombia, who you call a drug leader?
No, I haven't really thought too much about him. He's been fairly hostile to the United States. I haven't given him a lot of thought. He's going to have himself some big problems if he doesn't wise up. Colombia is producing a lot of drugs. They have cocaine factories that they make cocaine, as you know, and they sell it right into the United States. So he better wise up, or he'll be next. He'll be next too. And I hope he's listening. He's going to be next. Yes, Mr. President. Because we don't like people when they kill people. And they sell drugs, they kill them in the United States. And Colombia is a major manufacturer of drugs, meaning cocaine in particular, as you know.
I love the balls on President Trump. The cojones that this guy has. He's so done with diplomacy, the same old political has-been diplomacy that we see from every other leader that's ever come before him. He's got nothing to worry about. He doesn't need to get reelected. The one thing that he cares about is stopping people from dying, from stopping families from being destroyed, from people believing that the only opportunity they have is to be a drug producer, trafficker, or user. There is a lot more that God has in store for you when you move away from that. Now, take a look at this. Hank Johnson, the Democrat representative who believed that Guam might tip over. You know what? I think we have the clip in this interview or in this article. Let's look at that first. If you guys don't remember, Hank Johnson said that he was afraid that Guam might tip over.
This is don't anticipate that. This is a island that at its widest level is 12 miles from shore to shore, and at its smallest level or smallest
width, Hank. Width. It's called width.
Location, it's 7 miles between one shore and the other. Is that correct?
I don't have the exact dimensions, but to your point, sir, I think Guam is a small island.
Very small island, and about 24 miles, if I recall, long. So 24 miles long, about 7 miles wide at the least widest place on the island, and about 12 miles wide on the widest part of the island. And I don't know how many square miles that is. Do you happen to know?
I don't have that figure with me, sir. I can certainly supply it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, my fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
We don't anticipate that. The Guam population, I think, currently about 175,000, and again, with 8,000 Marines and their families, it's an addition of about 25,000 more into the population.
The whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize.
Hank Johnson is quite literally, and this is not an easy thing to achieve. He is the dumbest member of the House of Representatives. The idea that Hank Johnson is so inept, so misinformed, so retarded that he would think this is a realistic possibility. I am quite literally at a loss for words other than to laugh. Now, during a recent interview with, I don't know, some liberal podcaster, Dean Obadala, Johnson said that America is the great Satan, invoking the rhetoric of the Ayatollahs of Iran. Now, although I can admit that America, as an institution, has committed atrocities and great evil around the world, I would suggest that the evilest part of America is oftentimes found directly in Congress. So if anybody knows about the great Satan that exists within pockets of this thing called the United States government, this bloated bureaucracy that is being destroyed and perverted by this unelected fourth branch of government in concert with the legislative branch of government, it would be Hank Johnson.
Yeah, we are the world's #1 bully, and we're using our immense, unrivaled power to rule over those who have less power.
Now, this may have been true. I mean, we saw it with Barack Hussein Obama drone striking American citizens, engaging in unrestricted and completely unguided war and attacks on people around the world, the importation of hot dogs and cheese into the White House. Anyone? Employing people like John Podesta and Hillary Clinton? Yeah, I mean, there's some evil right there. I'm going to call it like I see it. So I agree with you in a manner of speaking, Hank, but President Trump just released the new national security strategy, which talks specifically about non-interventionism, about not going out into the world and trying to use our soft power to change these nations, to give these other places in the world a return to their own sovereignty. Let them make their own mistakes. And if their actions infringe upon the sovereignty and safety of the United States of America, well, then we'll have to do something about it. But as it stands right now, America is not a bully. America, under President Trump, is empowering the rest of the world. We are creating economic relationships. We are building bridges rather than imposing our will. So what Hank Johnson is talking about is decades old at this point. He's referring to things that may have come before when he was sitting right there in government, taking part in these things. But he obviously is misinformed about President Trump. I mean, in the same way he's misinformed about the idea of an island nation capsizing. I would love to hear a Democrat, somebody who perhaps votes for Hank Johnson, I would love to hear them comment on this, because I've never heard any Democrat comment on the utter stupidity of Hank Johnson.
And we're doing it with impunity. And this sends a shocking message to the world that America is indeed what did they used to call the great hand of Satan or something like that? I mean, America under the Trump regime is demonstrating that moniker was entirely accurate.
He's such a special kind of stupid, isn't he? All right. Before we continue, I have a brief message from our friends over here at Rumble and Alpha News. Hey, everybody, very quickly, this is a word from one of the most important documentaries you might watch this year. It's called The Fall of Minneapolis. I know a lot of people are very familiar with it, but it's produced by Alpha News. They're doing great work in Minnesota, and award-winning journalist Liz Collin. This film blows the lid off what really happened with George Floyd, the trial, the media lies, the police body cam footage they never showed you, and how an innocent city was burned while good cops were thrown under the bus. It's already been watched over 10 million times and praised by people like Charlie Kirk, Megyn Kelly, Jack Posobiec, Dinesh D'Souza, Tim Pool, and many more who care about truth and justice. But the best part, it's 100% free right now. No subscription and no paywall. So you can go watch The Fall of Minneapolis today at thefallofminneapolis.com, or you can just search for it on Rumble. It's free on Rumble. And if this film opens your eyes like it has for millions of others, please consider a 100% tax-deductible donation at alphanews.org so they can wake up even more Americans. You deserve the real story. Watch it tonight. You can use that QR code, or like they say, go ahead and just search on Rumble. Okay, so the utter stupidity of Hank Johnson is something that I don't know if it's truly possible to appreciate it in its final form, but I think that it rivals the stupidity of somebody like Eric Swalwell, another very disappointing member of Congress. Now, this disqualification scandal that we've been talking about, his inability to successfully run as a candidate for the governor of the state of California, is actually worse. There is a new tidbit that has recently been discovered. Now, Jim Kyle says, so in order to stop a bully, you send drugs into your own country and kill the most vulnerable. Solid plan, Dims. Solid plan, Deep State. Lee Walden says, question for Hank. What color is the sky? What color is the sky in you effing pig? AKA Lou says, Zach, do you think we need another January 6th demanding that Congress start honoring all of Trump's agenda and start doing their damn jobs? I'm going to say no, because based upon just the statement itself. So January 6th, if we were to have some type of, demonstration or, public demonstration, then, I am fully in favor of that. I think that those things are healthy. But January 6th obviously went bad because there were people in the crowd who were planted as confidential human sources or agents of the federal government that were seeking to destroy the MAGA movement. So, no, I don't think it's necessary. I think that we as citizens should certainly be making our discontent known to members of Congress. But in order to do that, you have to be sane and you have to be rational when you do it, because I have heard so many stories of people calling members of Congress and yelling at their voicemails, and that's not going to do any good. That's going to make them ignore you. But if you say make an appointment to speak with your congressman, if you band together with other groups of people and you can, perhaps bring a show of force in terms of numbers, then that may have something to do with it. But, I will also be the first to tell you, some of the things that I was suggesting they needed to address, we heard from Anna Paulina Luna, and she's saying that they are being addressed separately. Well, until it happens, it's not real. And that's why those things must continue to be impressed upon these members of Congress. But again, at the end of the day, simply because we are discontented citizens of the United States of America, that isn't necessarily enough for them to be willing to do something about it. This is one of the aspects of our election system, as fake and gay as it may be. I think that when we have people like us who run for office and who can get out there and like Brandon Herrera in Texas. Okay, I think Brandon is going to win this next election. Obviously, he's a big YouTuber and he's got some money behind him, but not nearly as much as Tony Gonzalez. And I think that it is possible to push these people out. And there are a number of different ways that you can impress upon them what needs to be done and what they should be focusing on. But I think that oftentimes people just kind of throw their hands up and they don't even try to contact their elected representatives, whether it's in the House or the Senate. Personally, I think that if you've got an issue that isn't being addressed, there's nothing wrong with you calling every day and just, hey, it's just me, little old me here in Missouri 12, just calling to let you know that you haven't called me back, and I specifically want to talk to you about this particular issue. Or making sure that if they do happen to come back to town, then you can go see them at an event or something like that. But I also am not I'm not naive enough to think that these people are necessarily even going to listen to us. The only thing we can do is try to exert pressure through our local activism, and in order to do that, we've got to have as many people as necessary so that they can't ignore us. All right. Lee, thank you very much. Also, Jim Kyle, thank you. Lee says, I'm truly sorry. I tried to say about Hank, what color is the sky in your world, you pig? Okay, now I get it. All right, but let's get back to Eric Swalwell. So when we learned about Eric Swalwell running for the governor of California, the sticking point is that he has not maintained a residence in the state of California consecutively for the last 5 years. Now, this is already a problem for him being a representative from the state of California. We do know that Eric has a primary residence. It's in Washington, D.C. That is listed legally on the mortgage origination documents and on the title as his primary residence. These are legally binding documents. They can be used in court, and they directly contradict the residency requirements under California law to be a representative from that state and to run for governor. Now, his mortgage documents designate his D.C. home as his primary residence. That is in violation of the California state constitution. That alone makes him ineligible to run for governor. Now, in this form that Eric Swalwell has filled out, his candidate intention form, it's California State Form 501. He filed this with the Secretary of State. This is a legal declaration here as well. And you can see that he did actually put a California street address. It is 400 Capitol Mall, Suite 2400 in Sacramento, California. Well, that's interesting. You know what? We can actually search for 400 Capitol Mall, Suite 2400 in Sacramento, California. We can see exactly what that is. Now, in order to run for candidacy in the state of California, you must declare a real and verifiable home street address. This mandate exists so that they can be certain that the identity of the person who is trying to get their name on the ballot is legal and correct. It establishes their legal residency per the qualifications in the California state constitution. It ultimately should help to prevent fraud in the qualification process for these candidates. And on that 501 form, he signs under the penalty of perjury. He signed this on November 11th of 2015 that his home address was 400 Capitol Mall, Suite 2400, Sacramento, California, 95814. Let's just, for shits and giggles, pull this up so you guys can see exactly what his home in the state of California looks like. Okay, let's go to, oh my gosh, what's this? Greenberg Trorig LLP. This is the address for a law firm. Wow, not a home address. You can see here on the Apple Maps. We can also take a look. And sure enough, it's right next to a Wells Fargo and an Insight Global and the DC Wonder Woman run of Sacramento and Wells Fargo Private Bank. It's actually in a mall. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. This is not a home address. Well, I already knew this. And that law firm isn't just any law firm. This is actually Eric Swalwell's own law firm. This is the law firm that represents him in his legal troubles. So instead of using a home address in the state of California, as Eric Swalwell is legally required to do, and remember, his hometown is listed as Livermore because he is representing California's 15th district, using this address is actually a fraudulent declaration on his candidate form, Eric California Form 501. So you can go look. This property is located in Alameda County. There are public records for this, and you can check to see if it's even owned by Eric Swalwell. But as I said, it was the Greenberg law firm. This is not a home address. It does not have any ownership interest with Eric Swalwell. It's not a place where a person can live. And Eric Swalwell has used this address on a number of different occasions. So on his annual congressional financial disclosures that he's filed since 2011, we can actually see that Eric Swalwell has never had any ownership interests in any home in Alameda County, California, and nothing in the city of Livermore. The entirety of Livermore is inside of Alameda County. So not only does Eric Swalwell not have a home or a place to live in California, he has never owned a home in California since he has been a member of Congress. We can again look at his personal financial statements that he has declared legally. And Eric Swalwell doesn't even have a condo or an apartment or anything that could be considered a home. And as he makes $174,000 a year, and he has for the last 13 years as a member of Congress, Eric Swalwell has appeared to have a bit of difficulty with his finances. He does have that place to live in Washington, D.C., but it would appear that he's not making enough money, or he's not spending his money wisely enough to be able to maintain a permanent residence back in California, which is a requirement to be a representative and certainly is a requirement to run as the governor of California. Now, we also know from his personal financial statements in the 13 years he's been in Congress, he's never paid down his student loans. The amount of his student loans, much like Ilhan Omar, have remained what they were since he came in. He still has $100,000 in credit card debt. I don't know what he's spending that money on. I have a credit card, but I only use it to keep my credit score high in case some emergency befalls me and I need to get a loan. But I pay that stuff off every single month, and I never pay any financing charges to the credit card companies. To be a resident in the state of California, you must receive mail at your home, which is a domicile, which is a legally fixed, true, and permanent place to live. A domicile is the place where a person's habitation is fixed, where they have the intention of remaining. At a given time, a person may have only one domicile, very similar to Letitia Pkwy James. You can only have one primary resident. Eric has made his primary residence as 209 South Northeast East Street in Washington, D.C. The deed of trust states that. He has had that as his primary property since April 18th of 2022. He has it listed as his principal residence as a condition of the loan that he has for that property. And the deed includes explicit language making the borrower liable for false or misleading statements regarding the occupancy of that property. From that same loan origination document, Clause 8 includes the line, material representations include but are not limited to representations concerning the borrower's occupancy of the property as the borrower's principal residence. So Eric Swalwell not having a principal residence in the state of California is again a problem for his run as the governor of California. But he's also listing an address, which is an office that is used by his law firm as his address on all of his sworn documents that he has filed in the state of California. So this is a false use of his attorney's address as a home address And that situation is now being escalated to Bill Pulte and the Federal Housing Finance Agency director, and he may receive an additional criminal referral for mortgage fraud, along with the criminal referrals that he has already received. Now, we know that Eric Swalwell is suing Bill Pulte and FHFA, claiming that the lawsuit that his mortgage listed on the public database is private. Again, this is mytax.dc.gov. You can go look it up yourself. It's not private. And he also claimed that he had that affidavit that this mortgage with his wife is only his wife's home, but he still cannot show that he has a place to live in California. So Eric Swalwell, I'm hoping, is going to be indicted very, very soon. But my worry is that in the same way we have been unable to secure additional indictments against Letitia James in the District of Virginia, Eric Swalwell being indicted in the District of Columbia, I don't know, man. But doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. All right, now let me say thank you very much to my friends over here on Pilled. Smod Poker, thank you for the cookie. Also, thank you for another cookie, MAGA. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Uncensored Abe, good to see you, buddy, dropping some shades. And he says, ignorance in the form of Jew hate is being exposed by social media podcasters. Turn ignorance off. Call Candace out for what she is. Drama queen, Jew hater. So I don't know that I feel that about Candace Owens. I think that Candace Owens, I haven't listened to everything that she said, but I think that I don't think that Candace Owens is just simply a Jew hater. I think that Candace Owens is at times a drama queen to get as many clicks as she possibly can, while at the same time, I have seen Candace Owens do really good work on a number of subjects. But I don't really listen to Candace Owens, so I can't comment entirely on everything that she's talking about. I do, however, think that there is a orchestrated effort right now to divide the truth community into factions so that people will have loyalties to a personality and not to the mission. Which is why, I do not hold myself up as some kind of celebrity or, a person that you guys should attach yourselves to. We are here for one reason and one reason only. That is to save this country. And if you have other people that you like, even if you have people you like better than me, I'm never going to say that that is something that I'm going to be upset about. Because if somebody else is doing a better job than me, then so be it. That's just the way that it is. I can only do as a fallible human that which I am capable of. And my goal at the end of the day, again, is to save America. Do whatever I can in my own small way to try to educate people and make it possible for them to do the exact same thing. Lee Walden says, you and John review of Eyes Wide Shut. Swalwell, just a thought, things aren't what they seem. So I don't know exactly how you mean, but Eric Swalwell, I think, is compromised, if that's what you're getting at. Also, Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says, have you seen this list? Let's take a look at that list. But yeah, let's take a look. Venezuela's former chief of national intelligence, Hugo Caraval, has officially released every U.S. senator who is on the Venezuela list of politicians that has been receiving millions of dollars in kickbacks. I have definitely not seen this list, and I would love to see the original source of it. That the Maduro regime and Venezuelan drug trafficking organizations that make up his government in exchange for using their government positions and influence to undermine President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's ongoing war with these narco-terrorists. Every one of these senators is guilty of providing aid and comfort to the enemy during a time of war and has their blood of their fellow American citizens, hundreds of thousands of whom die of drug overdoses every year at the hands of these criminal drug trafficking organizations that bring deadly drugs into our country on their hands. May each and every one of them be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and may their names forever live in shame for their treason. Now, this is the other thing. I think that there is also an op that is going on, which is designed to draw attention to Venezuela as if they're the only country that's engaging in the production or the exportation, shall I say, of drugs. We've got Mexico directly beneath us that is essentially a narco state, where we know 100% that the cartels have infiltrated vast swaths of the government. And I am 100% in belief that those same cartels are also paying off American politicians and people, all along the border and up into the rest of the country. So I would love to see some attention paid to the influx and influence of Mexican drug cartels into American politics. But that seems to be something that doesn't really get talked about. But in terms of Venezuela paying off through drug proceeds, I think that's CIA ultimately at the end of the day. And am I surprised to learn that any of these people are receiving money from the proceeds of drugs? Absolutely not. There are too many to list right here, but I want to see the original source of this. And this individual, Hugo Caraval, I believe this guy is in the custody of the U.S. government. Hold on just a second. So let's see. Ex-Venezuelan spy chief alleges that the Maduro regime runs drugs gangs and spies in the U.S. So I would say that the drug cartels are doing that. Do I know that Maduro is the one behind it? No, I don't. But it appears to me that what they're trying to do is get rid of the drugs. They're getting rid of the cartels. And the cartels that are part of Venezuela are part of the same cartels that are in power in Mexico. They're the same cartels that are running drugs all around the world. I think that this is another op that I see, an attempt to fractionalize these things and have them be associated only with a country, when the cabal, the global criminal cabal, these transnational criminal organizations are not separate entities. They are not individual entities. They are in league with each other. It's all part of the same globalist drug and criminal trafficking that is engaging in drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, child trafficking. There is no difference in my mind. It's just that they have different cells in different countries. And yes, not just drugs. They are human traffickers and organ traffickers. Absolutely, Alias. And that's why I say, just because I say like one thing, like the question here is about the drug traffickers, they're not just drug traffickers. They are engaging in every type of criminal enterprise they possibly can. And so, yes, I think that there is an operation designed to focus people on one thing while ignoring these other things, because none of them are disconnected. It's like pedophiles in Arkansas are connected to pedophiles in Washington, D.C. They are all part of the same network. And all of those people are also connected to these drug networks. So it's a much, much larger problem, and people are engaging in this criminal activity all around the world. All right, so continuing here, No Thanks Joe says, thanks, Lisa and Zach. Good to see you. I hope that you have found some back relief and it's feeling better. Thank you for being back on air tonight. God bless. Be safe. Be safe to you, my friend, as well. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. And another cookie, Doodah Man says, ask Chuck Grassley why breast cancer in his state is about 1 in 3 women and why he refuses to restrict the use of pesticides that cause breast cancer. You are absolutely correct. And that is one of the things that HHS is working on right now. They just got a medical journal to retract a story about, a study about glyphosate, saying that it's perfectly fine for people to use it and eat it. When the truth of the matter is that that study was funded by Monsanto, who is the producer of glyphosate. And yes, glyphosate is used in farming, and it's terrible for people. And Chuck Grassley, of course, his decisions are often made based upon the farming industry, but not just the farming industry, the pesticide industry, the seed industry, all of those things, which is why I talked about regenerative farming yesterday, because it eliminates the need for pesticides, and it puts in the hands of farmers the ability to run their own operations without the influence of these major cartels like the pharmaceutical and pesticide cartels. All right, so next, thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie, Red Gun 51 for the cookie, and Judy the Lady Pug for the cookie. Appreciate you. Thank you. Really do appreciate all of the support, you guys. Big deal. Big deal. All right, now, Benny Thompson, pardon me, not Benny Johnson, Representative Benny Thompson. Now we're going to be talking about DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's testimony. So Benny Thompson was questioning Kristi Noem, and he described the events of the day before Thanksgiving, where a Afghan mercenary who was part of a CIA hit squad in Afghanistan, who was allowed into the country by the Biden administration, and then he killed one guardsman, shot the other one in the head. Oh yeah, Andrew Wolf, by the way, is out of bed. He is up and walking around, which is a miracle. Praise Jesus. I can't believe that he survived and that he is thriving in the way that he is. He described those events as an unfortunate accident, which is the type of weak-wristed language you would expect to come from somebody like Benny Thompson, rather than identifying it as it was. It was a terror attack that was perpetuated and allowed because the Biden administration allowed a CIA hit squad to come into the United States. Take a listen to Benny and Secretary Noem having this exchange. Absolutely insane. Yeah, and please hit that like button, you guys. Hit the thumbs up, hit the red pill, whatever platform you're on. I would really appreciate it.
Madam Secretary, you and the gentleman from NCTC reference the unfortunate accident that occurred.
It's not an accident. And it doesn't even have to be an Afghan mercenary, okay? It doesn't have to be a special forces Afghani who was reporting to the CIA. Doesn't even have to be that. It was a person who intentionally drove to D.C. to shoot guardsmen in the head, okay? That is not an unfortunate accident. Now, you can imagine if it was a white American with an AR-15 and he had attacked National Guardsmen and killed one and gravely injured another. Benny Thompson would never call it an unfortunate accident. He would call it an act of right-wing terrorism, or even if it wasn't somebody on the right, he would still identify it as an act of intentional gun violence and assassination on National Guardsmen. But of course, because of who perpetuated this incident, he calls it an unfortunate accident with disingenuous glee.
With the National Guardsmen being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
I mean,
it was a terrorist attack.
Wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our National Guardsman in the head.
Look, Mr. Chairman, will you direct the witness to allow me to ask my question?
Let me ask you a question.
It was an unfortunate situation, but you blamed it solely on Joe Biden. I want you to know who approved the asylum application for this same person.
Mr. Thompson, this individual that came into the country.
No, I want to know who approved.
Congressman Thompson, I want you to understand when this individual came into the country, he came under evacuation of Afghanistan under Operation Allies Welcome, was thoroughly vetted by the Biden administration at that point in time, allowed into our country, and then was never followed up. I want to remind everybody in Congress.
Reclaim my time.
We follow the law. And every asylum is supposed to have a check-in every single year, and the Biden administration failed to do that. They vetted this individual, allowed them into our country, and did not do due diligence.
Witness will allow the gentleman to ask his question.
Yes or no? Who approved the asylum claim?
The application on the asylum was thoroughly filled out by information that was gathered by the Biden administration.
So the Biden administration approved the asylum.
The asylum application was put into place under the rules established by the Biden administration.
Reclaiming my time. I don't want to file perjury charges against you, but I'm of the opinion that the Trump administration, DHS, your DHS, approved the asylum application.
The asylum application moved forward under all of the information and vetting processes that were put in place under the Biden administration, which is when vetting happened. And that's what President Trump has changed. Under President Trump's administration.
Reclaim my time again.
When
it's obvious you don't want to answer the question. Mr. Kent, do you want a shot at it?
The individual was vetted to serve as a soldier in Afghanistan, and that vetting standard was used by the Biden administration as a ruse to bring him here. Had we followed the standard operating procedures for special immigrant visas, that individual and none of the Allies Welcome people would have come to America. That's on Joe Biden.
Gentleman's time has expired.
That was the answer.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. That was a murder that took place in D.C. It was not an unfortunate incident. And those comments are effing disrespectful.
Who is it?
I expect better from the
It's not a valid point of order. I will now recognize the gentleman from.
Oh, man. To think that he was going to get that through. An unfortunate accident is all that was. No. Anyways, so the heart of that matter, as Joe Kent and Secretary Noem was saying, and Joe Kent is from the National Counterterrorism Center, that individual was vetted and was pre-screened based upon the actions that were taken during the Biden administration. So that's why we've had to crack down and reevaluate every single person that has come in, let's say for the last 10 years. Anybody who's here, anybody who's waiting, anybody who was allowed in under Biden, every single person has to be reevaluated. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, in one of her final acts as a member of Congress, asked Secretary Noem what she's facing in sanctuary cities. What is it that they are dealing with? Also, the only reason that that's happening is because of the actions of the last administration.
Can you discuss further what you're facing in these sanctuary cities and the illegal alien monsters that have been released into American communities under the Biden administration?
Yeah, unfortunately, Congresswoman, we arrest individuals like that every day because they're so prevalent on our streets because of what happened under the Biden administration. Every day we're able to go out and encounter and bring to justice individuals who are raping our children, murdering our mothers, our grandmothers, our families are devastated by them. And I'm shocked at the Democrats' constant defense of these individual criminals over the American citizen that is out there just trying to live their lives, put food on the table, and live the American dream. And what we do at the Department of Homeland Security by making sure that we're out enforcing the law every day is making sure that those families get a chance to do that. So I'm so grateful for them. The 8,000% increase in death threats is real. These ICE agents and CBP officers that are out on our streets doing God's work live in these communities. They live there. These are their families and their neighbors that they're protecting, and they get up every day and do that job because they believe in their mission. They take an oath, and they are honorable men and women who are serving with greatness during a challenging time when activists and radicals attack them and put their lives in danger. I think it's shameful to see the defense of individuals who break our laws. We are a nation of laws. If we are not a nation of laws, we're no nation at all. And that is what we are doing every day, is following those. If you guys don't like the law, go change it. That's your job. You don't complain. I was raised by a dad who said we don't complain about things. We fix them. Well, go fix them. If you don't like the law, quit bellyaching, quit hitting and attacking our ICE officers, quit going out and protesting and screaming vile things at them, quit calling them names. We wouldn't let our children do that. Go do something that actually matters by having an honest debate and changing the law. That's your jobs. You all should be fired, in my viewpoint.
I love it. I love it. They all should be fired because that is their job. It's the only job that they have. But instead, they stand up and they grandstand and they talk about bullshit like unfortunate accidents. One of those grandstanders and one of those people who I am so hoping is going to end up in prison is Representative LaMonica McIver. So she used her time to go after Secretary Noem because, of course, she's currently facing charges for attacking and forcefully impeding and interfering with federal law enforcement agents outside of an ICE detention facility. But, of course, she wanted to scold Secretary Noem because she's got a personal vendetta because she's facing those charges. She was attempting to get her 5 minutes, her viral moment, sound bites, so that she could use in a campaign video or some type of social media what do they call it? A social media campaign. And, of course, she highlighted herself. She highlighted Representative Gravalia, who just got caught lying about getting sprayed with mace in the face. Senator Padilla, who forcefully pushed his way into a press conference several months ago and was tackled by Department of Homeland Security. And McIver with this 3-count indictment she is facing for the verbal and physical abuse of these federal agents. She's looking at a maximum of 17 years in prison. Now, a Biden-appointed judge recently declined to toss out the charges because the video shows that she actually did the things that she has been accused of and that she's being charged with. And remember, she said, I touch whoever I want when they asked her not to touch them. She thinks she's above the law. And of course, she wanted to get her couple of minutes of fame in at this hearing. Let's take a listen. Oh, we've got to wait for this real quick. All right. While we're waiting for that, don't forget you can head on over to onenessdrops.com/BOGO Red Pill 78 to get yourself a buy one, get one free on everything that they offer, which of course begins with chlorine dioxide water purification kits and includes many other things such as mullein drops and soursop extract tincture. When you get the buy one, get one free, you can also do that on their bundles that they offer, which will give you an ability to try out everything that they have, including the hydrochloric acid drops for digestive support, and it will help if you have acid reflux. So here we go. Oh, hey, the clip doesn't work.
I recognize the lady from New Jersey, Ms. McIver, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, for holding this hearing today. The greatest threat to the homeland right now is a Department of Homeland Security that the American people no longer trust, a department actively undermined by its own secretary. This is on you, Secretary Noem. Today's hearing is supposed to be about worldwide threats, but Madam Secretary, under your watch, the threat is coming from inside the building.
The call is coming from inside the building. She has no idea of what she speaks.
Because when DHS, the department charged with keeping Americans safe, is caught breaking the law, lying to the American public, systematically dismantling oversight, fueling bigotry, and targeting vulnerable communities, trust is broken.
None of this
Let's
has
start
happened.
with the basics. How can we trust your department with you at the helm? The American people deserve an answer, even if you've spent the past year dodging accountability like it's your full-time job. We need to talk about oversight. Oversight is not optional. It is not a courtesy because you feel like it. It is not something you entertain only when it's politically convenient to you. Yet, time and time again, Secretary Noem, you have treated congressional oversight as an inconvenience at best, and at worst, something to be invaded, ignored, or denied altogether. Republicans on this committee may
whose phone was going off?
Be willing to hand over their constitutional duty in order to kiss this administration's butt cheeks, but I am not. I will never. My district is not, and the American people sure aren't. While Republicans turned this hearing into a praise fest for your failed tenure, community.
She is insufferable. She is insufferable. I just want to see if there's actually a question here. I don't think there is going to be a question. I think that all she's doing is her political grandstanding. She is making a bunch of false claims. They hold no merit. They have no basis in fact.
Your failed tenure, communities across America, including mine in New Jersey, are made less safe because DHS under your leadership has become unproductive and malicious.
Such a
All
lie.
of the thank you that we keep hearing from across the aisle, there's no thank you from me. And we see
Well, because you're going to prison. You're going to prison for your obvious attempt to bully members of these federal agencies. And I will push back here. I'm sure Christine Noem will in just a moment. But America is measurably safer when we get rapists, when we get illegal aliens, when we get murderers, when we get gang members, when we get drug dealers off the streets. And like Christine Noem just said, it is a sickening thing to watch people like Representative LaMonica McIver stand up for illegal aliens who are poisoning our streets and raping our kids.
the truth that you're trying to hide. The truth is you are deeply unqualified for the post you hold. This is on full display in the way you treat the people in this body, myself included, who have been elected to serve our communities and keep them safe. Representative Grajava, Senator Padilla, myself and others whose character, integrity, and bodies were attacked by your department without evidence
Well, no, actually, we've got the video. Like, the evidence is there. And that's the thing. With Gravala, she lied and said that she was pepper sprayed in the face. That never happened. Never happened. And they were very polite to her, despite her insufferability as well.
And without apology. Far beyond being disrespectful, you have shown a complete disregard for the oversight authority granted to us by law.
Well, she showed up to talk to your stankin' ass, didn't she?
You have repeatedly shown that you will target whoever you want, whenever you want, without accountability. Members of Congress, members of our communities, and even American citizens, as many of my colleagues have continued to point out today. Secretary Noem, that's not leadership. That's not democracy. And that is not how this works.
It's a republic, LaMonica. It's not a democracy.
Again, this is not just about you. Don't want you to think this is just
But that's the only thing she's talking about.
The pick on you day. This is about the Trump administration that has turned DHS into a political weapon. So I'll ask you this. Is Trump embarrassed by your tenure, or is this exactly the kind of god-awful leadership he wants at DHS? Yes or no?
Shut up, bitch.
Ma'am, we've already conducted more oversight visits.
No. It's a yes or no. Yes or no. Okay, Secretary Noem, this is my time to talk, not your time to talk. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. Chair, I reclaim my time. Secretary Noem, DHS is breaking the law, hiding information from Congress, and shutting out oversight. So let me ask you, how can the American people trust your department with you at the helm with this kind of behavior?
The American people absolutely trust this department to keep them safe. And we are showing that every day by the support we get across the country, the amount of people that we're recruiting to all of our different agencies.
Thank you, Secretary Noem. Do you agree that using DHS resources to target members of Congress is an abuse of power?
Excuse me, would you say that
You
again?
would have heard me if you stopped talking and listened to my questions. Do you agree that
She said, if you would just stop talking crazy.
Using DHS resources to target members of Congress is an abuse of power?
We are not doing that. We are out there enforcing the law, doing our work, and we are allowing oversight.
Of course, we're not going to get any answers. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
She is awful. She is absolutely awful. I am sorry I had to subject you to that, but of course, we need to call it out when we see it. Now, take a listen to this here. Kristi Noem was also questioned by Sri Thanadar, the guy who is attempting to impeach President Trump. Oh, yeah, also that vote failed today. The president will not be impeached. He's attempting to impeach Pete Hegseth. He probably wants to impeach Kristi Noem. But take a listen to this.
Competence and your inability to truthfully carry out your duties of Secretary of Homeland Security.
Hold on, I got to refresh.
Competence and your inability to truthfully carry out your duties of Secretary of Homeland Security. If you're not fired, will you resign?
Sir, I will consider your asking me to resign as an endorsement of my work. Thank you very much.
Oh, bam, planted to the face. Now, also, while she was attempting to answer at least one question, someone in a Catholic cardinal's costume jumped up from the back and began screaming and holding a sign about stopping ICE.
Administration does each and every day to make America safe again. I'm very privileged and honored today to have my family with me. I'd like to introduce them to you.
Disruptions of congressional business is a violation of law, is a criminal offense under federal law. Audience members are advised to take their seats and maintain order. The chairman may now ask Capitol Police to remove and arrest the persons creating the disturbance.
Get ICE off our streets! Stop terrorizing our community!
Arrested.
Get ICE off our streets! Stop terrorizing our community!
Charge them. Charge them both.
Streets, stop terrorizing our community!
Charge them both. Oh, man, I hope those guys both get charged. Let's see. Jim Kyle, the Maryland dad was released today. Did they actually release him? I mean, I reported on his the order by Judge Paula Zinnis. Let's see. Lee Walden also says, in the end, communism is the tool of Satan, and damn it, we have no choice. The promise of America is our best hope. You are correct, sir. All right, now, here, Kristi Noem is squaring off with with Democrat Tim Kennedy. He was trying to blame her for the chaos that is happening in New York City, and Kristi got a couple of zingers in there. Let's listen. Oh, I need to refresh again. Dang it.
Officials' assessment that the United States has been operating in a heightened threat environment for several years now?
Yes.
Yes or no? Would you say New York City is susceptible to these kinds of security threats?
Yes, and that's why they should spend.
So with New York City being
$440
the
million
number one terrorist target in the nation,
the federal government gave them
with New York City being the number one, I reclaim my time, with New York City being the number one security threat in this nation, it's unconscionable that you would cut $134 million in urban area security initiative funding for the city of New York. What compelled you to knowingly make our cities less safe with these funding cuts?
What compels you, your mayor, and your governor to release thousands of criminals on the streets rather than to turn them over to ICE? You'd rather release
Secretary Noem,
a murderer out onto your street,
you cut $134 million
and honor our detainers.
in funds to support the security of New York City. And the city officials...
So Tim just wants money coming in. It doesn't matter to him that they're not spending it in the way that it has been appropriated. Now, when Kristi was done, she was leaving, and she was actually holding her grandbaby, and she was accosted by a whole crowd of brain-dead radical leftists. Here she is trying to get out of there.
Than someone who uses a baby as a political tool while taking babies away from the families. You cannot use a baby as a political tool while you take away the rights of families. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? You're holding a baby. How dare you? You hold a child that's separate from their family. Separated from numerous families. You should abstain.
Oh. Horrible, insufferable people. Now, Joe Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, was asked about the state of the nation in terms of how many of these dangerous people were allowed in under the Biden administration. Misfit says, oh, how I wish the Kool-Aid man would bust through the wall and bitch slap these people. I am right there with you. Yeah, I mean, it's a great argument for the use of force when people engage in that type of behavior. But of course, you know, we've got to be polite.
We've made significant progress under President Trump's leadership. We have the jihadis of ISIS and al-Qaeda on the run in Iraq and Syria, thanks to the decisive action and the strikes that we've taken there recently since President Trump took office in January. However, we have a persistent threat from the individuals that were allowed into this country by the previous administration. The number one threat that we have right now, in my view, is the fact that we don't know who came into our country in the last 4 years of Biden's open borders. What we have identified is alarming, and I want to share that with you today. We just recently put out a warning of the heightened risk of terrorist attacks posed to the homeland by terrorists pretty much of all stripes, but in particular from ISIS and from al-Qaeda. NCTC has been crunching the numbers and going through the sheer volume of known and suspected terrorists that are in the country that came in under the Biden administration. So far, NCTC has identified around 18,000 known and suspected terrorists that the Biden administration let come into our country. These are individuals who, under normal circumstances, would never be allowed to enter our country because of their ties to jihadi groups like ISIS and al-Qaeda. Yet the Biden administration not only let them into the country, and in many cases facilitated their entry into the country, just like the entry of the Afghan terrorists who committed the terrorist attack here just before Thanksgiving, killing one of our National Guard members and wounding another. That Afghan was brought into the country as a group of over 100,000 Afghans who were brought here during the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. These individuals, despite what has been reported, were not vetted properly to come into the United States. The individual terrorist who committed the attack in D.C., he was vetted to serve as a soldier in Afghanistan.
So clearly, again, the problem did not begin during this administration, but they refuse to accept that. Now, here is a really interesting clip. You guys remember Hunter Kozak? He was the guy who had asked the last question of Charlie Kirk. He was standing at the microphone as Charlie was shot in the neck. Well, it looks like he did an interview back in September with Andrew Callahan. He is that guy who has Channel 5 News. He's a liberal. And Hunter Kozak just happened to be one of the people who was on the Un-F America tour, which was following Charlie Kirk and essentially putting on counter left-wing events at the same time that TPUSA was doing events. Now, in this interview, he says something very interesting, and I had never heard this acronym before. But he's talking about people theorizing that he may have been sent there to ask Charlie this question as like the sort of signal, the go signal to shoot Charlie. And he says, for some reason, this makes people think I was in on it, that I was a mic. I was a mic. That is a very specific thing to say. I have never seen anybody call Hunter Kozak a mic. So it begs the question, what is a mic? This sounds like it may be a Freudian slip because a mic is an acronym, but it is a very particular acronym that is not just used by average everyday internet sleuths. A mic is a misattribution intelligence cell. It is used by black ops dealers or black ops individuals. It means a black ops squad that would be behind a false flag event. So these are the people who would help engineer the narrative that then be used to frame a patsy. So Hunter Kozak might have been a mic, part of this misattribution intelligence cell. The old man that stood up and said, I did it, and then his pants fell down. He could have been part of this misattribution intelligence cell. But this is not the kind of acronym that your average everyday person would ever know. I've never heard it before, and I certainly didn't know about it until very recently. Take a listen to this.
I don't know. I think that the shooter is suspected to be a sniper on one of the roofs. For some reason, this makes people think that I'm in on it, that I was a Mike or I was Mike or
that I was a Mike. Now, as soon as he says it, he like catches himself and he doesn't continue with this thought because I think he realizes that once he uses this term, a Mike, you immediately have to define it.
I don't even know what a mic is. I learned that term two hours ago.
Never heard one single person talking about a mic at that time. Never heard anybody saying that. Now, he's obviously not talking about like the fact that he's standing at the microphone. He is identifying himself as a particular actor with a specific name and designation that no one was attributing to him at that time.
I don't know. I think it's
and he says I've never heard that term before. I just learned it 2 hours ago. From where? Where did you hear the term mic? Because we've all done a lot of digging on this assassination, and I've never heard anybody call Hunter Kozak a mic. I've heard him called perhaps a crisis actor, or I've heard him suggested to be, as part of this this left-wing squad that may have had something to do with it, but I've never heard anybody refer to him as a mic.
I don't even know what a mic is. I learned that term two hours ago.
What is it?
I don't know. I think it's like
is it like some sort of
I don't know. I kept saying
for liberal.
No. It was like I was shouting a call, and I said.
Oh, like you had a code word?
Yeah, I had a code word.
Wow, nice save, Hunter. Nice save. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I am not buying this at all.
And because I was talking about shooting, so they're like, that's
like
got to be it.
Go.
And I also said, I said great right after responding to him. And I think I don't even know why I said great. I think I was just like.
It's a high pressure situation.
That I was, Mike.
I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
So, yeah, I think that makes it even more likely that Hunter Kozak was somehow involved in this operation. Now, Tyler Robinson, the man who has ostensibly been blamed as the only person to be involved in the death of Charlie Kirk, had his first, well, not his first, but a court appearance today. And what's very interesting about it is that during this court appearance, it was supposed to be a public hearing, and almost immediately, the judge shut down the hearing, and they forced everyone to leave, including Tyler Robinson's own family. Now, take a look. Here is Tyler Robinson. He appears to have no care.
This is the first time we are physically seeing Tyler Robinson in court on your screen right now. And I believe the woman in the hair clip who is facing away from the camera is his lead attorney, Catherine Nestor. This is the first time he is in person in court here in Utah County. He has appeared virtually a few times before. And now, outside of that courtroom that you're looking at right now, fierce, intense security, several city blocks cordoned off, all types of police in every direction. And a short while ago, we saw a very large police caravan arriving to the courthouse, going into the Sally Port, and a massive armored vehicle in the middle of that caravan, who we can assume was perhaps Mr. Robinson being delivered to this courthouse. Some of the doors are zip tied, so all types of measures being taken to make sure that this proceeding happens.
So his attorney, Catherine Robinson, is somebody that I'm going to be looking into, obviously. But the striking thing is that the judge ordered everybody out of the courtroom, and only Tyler Robinson and the prosecution were allowed to stay in there. So I don't know what they were talking about, that they needed everybody to leave. That made it appear as if there is something to hide, that the government doesn't want people to know something that they're talking about. Don't know what it is, though, because it is not public, even though it was supposed to be a public hearing. So still not getting any answers about that. Here is the judge kicking everybody out of the courtroom.
Mr. Robinson has some immediate family members who are present, his father, his mother, and his brother, and we would ask the court to permit them to remain in the courtroom during the closed portion of the hearing.
To the state. My only concern with that, Your Honor, is that we're going to be talking about court security measures, and I don't know that we'll have to go into a lot of detail about that, but I do have concerns about those issues being discussed in public.
All right. Mr. Novak, do you have authority that supports allowing them to remain in a closed hearing?
No, I think it's subject to the court's discretion to decide who is and is not an appropriate member of the public. I think they have a unique relationship with Mr. Robinson, and they.
So court security. I don't know what they would be worried Tyler Robinson, his family, would be doing. Interesting. I don't know. Can't tell you what. All right. Now, earlier today, President Trump took a question about the enhanced level of security and scrutiny we are giving to people coming into the country. There is a new measure which is going to look at the last 5 years of social media history when foreigners want to come into the United States on a tourist visa. I think that's a great idea personally, because we have had many different instances in the past of people who hate the United States of America. They come into the country on a tourist visa and then they just stay. And they're doing it so that they can end up taking advantage of us and hurting the United States in some way.
There's a new proposal from DHS that would see tourists from a lot of countries have to hand over 5 years of social media history to get a tourist visa. Are you concerned at all that if that's implemented, there would be a decline in tourism next year? And what sort of material do you think is...
We're doing so well. We just want people to come over here and safe. We want safety. We want security. We want to make sure we're not letting the wrong people come into our country. We're getting rid of a lot of bad ones from jails, from mental institutions, drug dealers. And we're getting a lot of bad people, murderers. 11,888 murderers, half of them, almost exactly half of them, committed more than one murder. We're getting rid of them.
Get rid of them. Get rid of every single one. Now, there is new information about Representative Ilhan Omar that has been published by a local news outlet in Minnesota. She's being accused now of money laundering, and we spoke about this briefly maybe a week or two ago, the millions of dollars that Ilhan Omar seemed to be able to funnel into her husband's consulting firm. But now a detailed investigation has been done, and this press conference was handled by a man by the name of Don Samuels. Don Samuels is running against Ilhan Omar, and the money that we are talking about having been laundered to her husband goes back to the 2020 race. Take a listen to this.
And we called together this press conference in the wake of yesterday's article in the Minnesota Reformer about my opponent, Representative Omar. She paid her husband, Tim Minette, $3 million of campaign money. And the way her time in office has given his business access and credibility, as they've misappropriated more than $1 million in money from South Dakota investors. They left workers unpaid and found the funds frozen by the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the U.S. Treasury Department in charge of enforcing sanctions.
So foreign money being brought in that was somehow connected to Ilhan Omar and was stopped by the Treasury Department of the United States government.
Unfortunately, this story is just the latest scandal in a string of new stories about Representative Omar that narrow the focus on her and bring us further from the type of progress our district and our country needs around issues that affect the lives of our neighbors.
Well, there is a lot of money that we're talking about here. So this consulting firm received $3 million from Ilhan Omar's campaign account. It was then spent with E Street, and a large portion of that money went directly back into Ilhan Omar's household. This is probably how she has grown her net worth to many tens of millions of dollars. It's a misappropriation of money, and Ilhan Omar has repeatedly enriched herself. Now, this is very similar to all of the other instances of Somali fraud that we're seeing in Minnesota. Now, if you'll remember, the Minnesota judge who tossed out the guilty verdict against the Somali fraudster and his wife, it was $7.2 million in fraud. There are actually two other related case dismissals that happened by other judges in Minnesota. There appears to be a concerted judicial effort to get these fraudsters out of the line of fire for whatever reason. Now, this is Lou Ragus. He is a local reporter in the Minnesota, in the Minneapolis area. Take a listen to these other two cases that were also dismissed, having to do with the same defendants.
Minnesota judge who tossed out a jury's guilty verdict in a fraud case is not the only judge in Hennepin County who had problems with the state's case. I broke this story that went national a couple weeks ago. Judge Sarah West acquitted Abdi Fattah Youssef 3 months after a jury found him guilty in a $7.2 million home health care fraud scheme. Since then, I've found that another judge, Amber Brennan, dismissed charges against Youssef's wife before it reached trial, and a third judge, Hillary Caligiuri, dismissed charges against another co-defendant. In that case, Caligiuri said the state had very little evidence. Judge West's ruling relies on a review standard for cases that rely heavily on circumstantial evidence with wording that is unique to Minnesota. It says that the evidence has to be inconsistent with any other reasonable hypothesis. I'm following a state Supreme Court decision expected to come back soon that could completely rewrite all of that. It's the conviction of Nick Firkus for the 2010 murder of his wife Heidi. Whether his conviction is overturned or affirmed, the court opinion will have a huge impact on many cases in the state. I'm Lou.
All right, so clearly they wrote the law in such a way to get people off in the state of Minnesota. It's not just a problem with Hennepin County, although Hennepin County being as liberal as it is a huge issue. But the way the law is written in the state of Minnesota is directly intended to give us results like this. But as he said, there was a state Supreme Court case decision that likely is going to change all of that. And that is something that is sorely needed. Now, considering the testimony of National Counterterrorism Center lead Jill Kent, and then also DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, and the work that is currently being done in Minnesota, I want to show you two contrasting visions of the way that ICE is being able to address these issues. In Minneapolis, there is a tremendous amount of pushback, not only from the white Ivy League liberals in the Minneapolis area, but also from the vast Somali scam community that exists there. Ben Bergquam has been embedded with ICE throughout a number of different operations happening all over the country. And he took this video earlier today. He said, you know, this is what we have to deal with. This is how ICE is being obstructed every single place we go. They stop off for coffee and immediately they get surrounded.
I literally had time to go get a coffee, and this is what happens.
You got morons showing up with signs, blowhorns, with whistles, Somalis surrounding the vehicles, blocking traffic. Driving by, giving the finger, Somali women saying F you.
Minneapolis, this is sadly what America's become because of leftist activists. We've got ICE out here doing operations, and immediately we got the whole community coming out. People just blocking traffic, protecting Somali illegals. No! This car.
All right, it goes on like that for another 2 minutes. I won't subject you to it, but I want you to see what they're dealing with. All right, now, take a look at this. This is also in Minneapolis. A member of a federal unit that was there to arrest illegal aliens was actually kidnapped yesterday. This was something that the federal agents were able to take care of rather quickly, but there was a brief kidnapping in the Plymouth New Hope area of an individual that HSI was attempting to detain. Take a look at this. On 12/10, dispatch aired a kidnapping of a federal agent. They stated they had reports that an HSI Homeland Security Investigations agent was in a suspect's vehicle that was fleeing from them, and they were chasing the vehicle. Dispatch initially aired Highway 169 42nd and stated that they had another caller stating they were the driver of the fleeing vehicle and they were driving to the Plymouth Police Department. As the information was coming in, dispatch was airing that they were near Hy-Vee on Lancaster, but also aired that they were possibly passing another street. The city of Plymouth does not have a Hy-Vee on Lancaster. However, while en route, New Hope aired that they were out with the suspect vehicle in front of their police department and had the agent secured, but that someone had fled on foot in front of Hy-Vee. As I was arriving at the area, I confirmed that the agent had been safely recovered and that they had the driver of the vehicle and the suspect that fled on foot was nearby. Okay, but literally they kidnapped an HSI agent as they were fleeing from federal authorities. Thank God the guy got arrested. Thank God the agent is okay. Here's another example. Some of those same left-wing protesters that show up to impede ICE. This guy is one of those people. And as he's being arrested, he directly yells to the people that he came with, and he says, delete me from all the signal chats right now, meaning they're admitting that they are using encrypted signal communications to circumvent the ability of investigators to investigate them. But they've also now just admitted, this guy admitted, to requesting the destruction of evidence. That's going to add some time onto his charges if the Justice Department pays attention and they charge him with it. Take a listen.
Last name. Last name, they're on signal. Have them delete me from all the chats.
Have them delete me from all the chats.
Delete me from the chat.
All right, so that's not very smart, and I sure hope that the DOJ is able to get to that before they get rid of him. Now, from Minneapolis, we're going to go to Louisiana because it's a very different situation down in Louisiana. We've got 60, 70,000 Somalis in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. There's 80,000 or more criminal illegal aliens with final deportation orders that are down in Louisiana. This guy is a construction guy, private business owner in Louisiana. And he said that since ICE has arrived and since Commander Bovino got down there, all of these construction sites are completely empty because the subcontractors and the construction companies have been exclusively hiring illegal aliens. So I don't want anybody saying that Americans won't get out there and get their hands dirty. If they're not able to get a job on a construction crew to do the work, it's not because they refuse to do the work. It's because they're not being hired, because instead these subcontractors are hiring illegals and then pocketing the difference on the money.
So we've had ICE and DHS down in Louisiana for about a week now. And as a business owner, I've been running my own construction company since I was 18 years old. I'm 27 now. We do painting, roofing, drywall, tile, ceramics, trim, molding, carpentry, flooring, concrete, a little bit of everything. I'm seeing firsthand just the shockwave them boys are sending across the state. No immigrants want to go to work. None of them want to even ride in a truck like mine with a ladder rack on it.
And you know what that means? That means that the American businesses, the American employees are getting all of that work that the illegal aliens are no longer showing up to do because they don't want to get arrested, because they're trying to protect themselves and stay out of harm's way. And that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. Now, ICE is still going to get you, boys. You're still going to get arrested. But in the meantime, it means that American businesses are getting the opportunity to finally get the work that they've been denied.
And it is so amazing. I've gotten more calls in the last week than I've gotten in the last 3 months. I got 20 calls in one day. GC scrambling to try and finish projects. Halfway through, these guys not showing up to work, starting projects. Landlords, you know how a landlord always has, their go-to guy they call. The boys ain't showing up to do nothing. And this just shows you how bad the problem is down here in Louisiana. I mean, we got a population in our whole state that's like the size of LA County. Genuinely, in our whole state. And they have filled this place like no other. And I've got to see through the presidencies. We had our little heyday with Trump's first go-round, 99 cents a gallon gas.
So anyways, what's happening in Louisiana is wonderful for the people of Louisiana. And because of how bad the problem is, those people, those Native American citizens in Louisiana have welcomed ICE and CBP with open arms. Greg Bovino says not only are Louisiana police helping out, the residents have surged to give resources and to assist the arrests of these illegal aliens in a way they have not seen anywhere else. Neighbors are pitching in. They're making gumbo for these boys. They are keeping their bellies full and making sure that they've got all the fuel they need to get out there and arrest these illegal aliens. They've got 20 or more state agencies that are helping across the state of Louisiana, and they are deporting like nobody's business.
As they've received unprecedented support here from those local law enforcement agencies and also local leaders, which, as you know, this is really night and day from what we've seen in blue cities. So Bovino says in the first week, they've arrested about 150 illegal migrants under Operation Catahoula Crunch, and more than 20 law enforcement agencies, like you mentioned, across the state, including Louisiana State Police, are working with Border Patrol and supporting their immigration enforcement efforts. We even saw community support. An illegal migrant bolted after a traffic stop, ditched this car, and ran into a neighborhood near a school, sparking a manhunt. Neighbors pitched in, they checked their backyards, even showed off some Southern hospitality and offered agents gumbo. Chief Bovino says agents are able to focus on making arrests because of support from law enforcement.
If you look at places like California, that's Governor Newsom, Chicago, that's Governor Pritzker, Mayor Johnson, and then in North Carolina, Governor Steen. They said some very vile and contemptible things about the Border Patrol, about ICE agents, and our allied law enforcement teams. And what that does is that empowers their weaker-minded constituents to perhaps take up violence against us when normally, otherwise, they wouldn't do that.
In a video shared by Vice President J.D. Vance on X, one construction company owner says he's seeing a difference ever since.
Oh, man, such good news. Such good news. Now, here also, just one more video coming out of Maine, and then we have a special treat from President Trump. Maine, another state where they have brought in these Somalians like nobody's business. Bobby Charles is running for governor of Maine, and he was a investigator prior to his, fledgling career as a politician. Listen to this. Another one of the reasons why the government has no will to do anything about the problems they see there, because they are funneling billions of dollars in contracts, no bid contracts, into the hands of their friends and relatives.
How about the fact that you have an audit that shows $2.1 billion in questionable contracts? Steve Robinson, God bless him, digs a little deeper. You look at some of the deep contracts, you find there are more than 4,500 contracts that were non-compete, sole source, given to friends and family of Democrats. Does that look like public corruption? Yeah. How about the fact that I ran 5 years of investigations for Gingrich? I ran the Waco investigation, 100 witnesses. I ran all kinds of investigations. I did criminal referrals. Do you think, with 4,500 potential felonies, do you think there was one criminal referral? No. That is normalized public corruption. How about the fact that
normalized public corruption? And that's why nothing seems to get done, because they're all in on it. Now, finally, President Trump just posted on Truth Social, for years, Democrats ignored violent and vicious crime of all shapes, sizes, colors, and types. Violent criminals who should have been locked up were allowed to attack again. Democrats were far too happy to let in the worst of the worst countries so they could rip off American taxpayers. Democrats only think there is one crime, not voting for them. Instead of protecting Americans and their tax dollars, Democrats chose instead to prosecute anyone they can find that wanted safe and secure elections. Democrats have been relentless in their targeting of Tina Peters, a patriot who simply wanted to make sure that our elections were fair and honest. Tina is sitting in a Colorado prison for the so-called crime of demanding honest elections. Today, I am granting Tina a full pardon for her attempts to expose voter fraud in the rigged 2020 presidential election. Now, as we have talked about before, Tina Peters was convicted on state crimes, but it appears that the DOJ has been making an argument that Tina Peters' actions are actually subject to federal statute because she was dealing with a nationwide federal election that was taking place in her local area in Mesa County in the state of Colorado. So the DOJ has already asked Governor Jared Polis to release Tina Peters into the custody of federal officials. Now that President Trump has granted her a full, absolute, and unyielding pardon for anything that she was accused of, it remains to be seen how they're going to handle getting her out of prison. But I believe that the administration is going to use every resource in their power to demand that Colorado release Tina Peters now that she has officially been pardoned by President Trump. God bless President Trump. Free Tina Peters, because Tina did nothing wrong. All right, guys, we're going to go through these final thank yous over here on Pilled, and I have one final message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let's go ahead and go with Christmas gift. Here we go. Okay. Are you looking for a Christmas gift that everyone will talk about? Well, meet the Mono Starscope. It's a compact, high-powered zoom device that turns any moment into an adventure. Whether you're gifting it to a traveler, a nature lover, a sports fan, or someone who just loves cool gadgets, the Mono Starscope delivers excitement the second you look through it. This powerful monocular lets you see miles ahead with crystal clarity. Wildlife, landscapes, concerts, even the Christmas lights across the neighborhood. Everything looks closer, sharper, and more stunning. And the best part, it fits right in your pocket. Imagine their face on Christmas morning when they open up a gift that's not just fun, but actually useful. There's no complicated setup, no bulky gear. It's just pure high-definition viewing anytime, anywhere. You can take it hiking, camping, sightseeing, or to holiday events. And the Mono Starscope turns every outing into a better view. So give the gift of exploration, wonder, and wow, I didn't know it could zoom that far. This Christmas, surprise them with something unforgettable with the Mono Starscope, because the best gifts open up whole new worlds. And you can get 62% off for a very short time when you use that QR code that you see on screen or the link that you're going to find in the chat or below the video. Thank you very much once again to Rumble and the good folks over there at Mono Starscope. Okay, final thank yous. First of all, Casper17 says, I wish they would take people in for questioning and put them in a room filled with truth serum gas and invite them and interview them from another room with a speaker system. Get to the freaking truth. I'm right there with you, my friend. Right there with you. Okay, final thank yous. Looks like Filter Dog said, Trump pardons Tina Peters. Amen. Hallelujah. Esther G says, good. God bless Tina Peters. Beautiful way to end the show, Zach. Thank you. Thank you, Esther. So good to see you out there. God bless. No thanks, Joe says that was probably Epstein calling that insufferable bitch on the phone to tell her what to say. LOL. And Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. All right. Thank you to everybody over there on Getter. Thank you to everybody over there on X. Thank you to everybody watching on YouTube. If you haven't yet, please, guys, I would really appreciate it. If you hit that like button, you will help me get the show in front of more eyes, and people will be here hanging out with us, and they will be able to get quality information. And obviously, it's the least expensive way that you can support the show. I think that there was somebody yesterday who donated over on Ko-Fi. If you want to donate on Ko-Fi, you go to ko-fi.com/redpill78. And when you donate on Ko-Fi, you'll be able to send a message. There will also be a Trump, dancing Trump that shows up on screen. Actually, no, Steph Asia, I did read this one. Okay, so that's it. But Ravelin says every method by which congressmen and senators get rich in Congress needs to be shut down and cut off. Pensions, permanent health care, insider trading, kickbacks, absolutely everything. I am 100% on board with you. And I keep saying this, but congressmen need to live in their home district so that they would be forced to maintain residency, so that they will be accountable to the people that they are representing, and so that they can keep office hours every single day. Congressmen can join session via Zoom, they can vote remotely, and they can live, work, sleep, and eat in the districts they represent. And I guarantee you it would be a lot harder for them to get wealthy off of all the grift, and they wouldn't be sitting having lunch with lobbyists from the pharmaceutical and the military-industrial complex every single day. All right, guys, good luck. God bless. I will see you tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Peace. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to set up a raid. I got to send you guys to a raid. Let's see. All right. I am setting you up on a secret raid over there on Foxhole. I am also passing out the gold pills. There you go. And let me look over here on Rumble, and I will also set up another secret raid. Let's see if I can make somebody's day by sending people over to a stream that is not widely populated. Let me go to who is live right now. Who is live? Is there anybody live that I know? Doesn't look like I do. Hold on. Let's see. All right. Oh my gosh. It looks like President Trump is delivering remarks right now. So I will send you over on Rumble to view President Trump's live remarks. Okay, you guys, /raid. Boom. Oh. Target channel can't be raided. What? It says it's live. Hold on. Do they have raids turned off? Wow, that's gay. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to send you guys to off-grid desert farming. How's that? Oh, no. Millennial Woes. Who's Millennial Woes? Leonardo Jordi is on Millennial Woes. Okay. I'll send you to that one. How's that? Okay. There you go. Say hello. Have a great night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
And the victimhood